Good to see you, gentlemen. Thank you for coming. First item on the agenda today is we're going to do a quick, we're going to review a special event permit for the Savage Race. Thankfully, the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission have also had members present, so we may be able to discuss and see if it could be a more efficient way of addressing at least repetitive or repeat event permit requests. If you could just start with the item and then we'll go to...
Pretty simple. This is a special event permit for a Savage Race at Carter Stevens Farm. We have sign-offs from all the other departments, other than the two boards, that we were going to discuss and have the full sign-off on tonight.
Has the Planning Board had a chance to review this? Did they have any comments?
I haven't had a chance to look at it. I haven't seen it.
Oh, has it been presented to you?
That was emailed to Mary Ann over a month ago now. Maybe a month and a half ago, I can look back. And I think I sent it a second time when these guys decided they wanted to have a joint meeting. Real quick.
Did the Conservation Commission have a chance to look at it, or at least you as a representative, or are you representing them today as?
Not even on it.
Oh, you're not?
No.
Do we have a member of the Conservation Commission?
Period one's
You're
present.
supposed to be here. Then you're doing the conversation.
Okay.
Is Ron Rich supposed to be here? Is Ron supposed to be here?
It should be, he's the chairman.
Wasn't that only if they had a problem, they were gonna come, or if they had a problem with it, right?
It was just more to see if we could expedite it so you're not waiting for another meeting. So if they don't have a meeting tomorrow, then you're waiting another week. So the concept was we had requested if the Planning Board, Conservation, and Select Board could sit together and try to reduce the week-to-week delays just due to timing. It's the first time though, so it's not something that I'm expecting perfection the first time we requested, so hopefully we can smooth this out and see if it works for all the boards.
As we asked for, comment a month ago on this, they've had, I believe, at least 2 meetings since to bring forward any comment. It's difficult to try to delay this because of inaction of another board.
Agreed, but our permit actually has a signing place for them, and I wouldn't want to step on their toes by signing something without at least having them make some type of communication saying, go ahead and move forward. Not at this stage. I mean, if we do this a couple more times and communication doesn't work, we might start stepping on toes, but the intent wasn't to step on toes, it was just to be more efficient if we could. My understanding is that the race was the same race they did last year, the same course, same setup, same impact. So however the Planning Board or the Conservation Commission may have reviewed it before, it'd be the same circumstances. That's how it was represented to me. So initially, I guess what I would say is, since we really probably aren't going to go very far with this today as an agenda item itself, the concept of trying to develop a joint meeting where this could get reviewed and possibly signed off as a group, at least on ones that we don't consider are new or with multiple layers that we're unfamiliar with. If we could expedite possibly some of this special event review process right now. It's just an intent, without rewriting the entire special event permit, which we have questions about and we've got to work through anyway, to try to make what we have work more efficiently until we can get to a better process.
We're all in favor of that.
Okay.
And we've done this before, and you know, most of the folks on the planning board think that this is a good function, it brings people into Barre. You know,
Yeah.
so that's a good thing.
Okay.
The email was sent to every department and board on April 30th.
Well, maybe it was distributed and I missed it or something,
I'm not sure.
but I'll be happy to take a look at it now if you're.
Yeah, I have a whole folder right here if you want.
Yeah, if you could, and we could, I don't know what your position with the rest of the group is, so I wouldn't ask you to do something if you haven't talked to them about what you could or couldn't do.
More or less the same as last year.
That's what I was told. I haven't compared last year to this year to actually verify it, but it sounds like they weren't changing anything.
Yeah, it's exactly the same.
Okay.
When is the race?
I don't know, you'd have to look, it's in,
Is it in June?
Yes.
July, isn't it?
July 14.
Yeah, sorry.
July 14th.
Mhm.
Just a single day.
Mhm.
All right.
And we did, in the email that I did send, I had asked for a representative from planning board and conservation, so that we can have a joint meeting for approval. That's what was sent.
All right, so they're talking about wanting to set up possibly 2 to 3 weeks prior to that event. So we are getting close to really needing a confirmation that there's no issue so that they can comfortably move forward without holding them up. You know what I mean? That would put it at the third week in June, and I'm sure it's gonna take them, at least 2 weeks prior to that to confirm with everybody, to deliver everything, have labor where they need it, do all that, so we got a couple weeks, and then which probably fits within, if you need to, another meeting you have scheduled or something. I know you've been really bottled up with solar and recreational marijuana, so I can definitely understand that eating up a lot of time at the meeting and things like that, so.
Do you know when your next meeting is, right now?
First Tuesday of the month.
I think it's June 5th.
I'm ready to move on it now.
I signed this one
I don't see an issue, I just don't have any formal response from the Conservation Commission, so.
Right.
in there. If they don't come, if they don't show up, I pass them.
We're gonna be meeting before the planning board, June 4th. They'll be meeting June 5th, but we can.
Yeah, they're meeting the second week of June,
Then we got the town meeting too. So.
right, so we won't be meeting again till June 18th.
Oh, you don't do the first Monday? I mean, the first Tuesday?
Second.
Can I say something?
No, we do the first and the third
And
Tuesday of the month.
Conservation is opposite, right? They do,
Yeah, they do the opposite, they do second and fourth.
Yeah. But, you know, we looked at this last time, I don't have a problem signing off on this now. I can't sign for conservation.
right, but if you could do that, that would definitely help. And then, that gives Conservation one more week to just respond, or even if they can provide an email, then we can act on it at the next meeting. We're not gonna hold it up outside of, it's my understanding. I'll let
I'm
Greg
waiting for my
and,
input.
I'll let Greg and Charlie speak for themselves if they have any concerns, but personally, I wouldn't be holding this up for any reason unless Conservation brought up an issue. So, June 4th would be the latest date, in my opinion, outside of some input from the other boards of selectmen. Do you have something?
Yes, I do. I make a motion, we approve the permit for the Savage Race.
Second.
I think a month is plenty. I don't think this, we need to revisit this anyways. We've made an attempt.
All right.
We've had a month. This is not something unusual. And
Not now.
I think it should be, go through, it's been a month.
All right, any further discussion?
The only thing I was gonna say, maybe conservation has a meeting tomorrow.
Hmm.
I mean, they can come down and sign off whenever, since the selectmen approved it. If that's okay with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter to me if they do or don't. Like I said, there's not a bylaw that governs this. This is more of a procedure that's set in place, so it's
Mhm.
really not important if they don't
Call for
sign.
vote?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye. So thank you guys for coming and participating in that, and we'll do our portion of it, we'll do our signatures, and technically that approves it.
Good.
And Conservation Commission may come in and sign or not belatedly, but if they do, they're just doing it to get, close the loop.
You know what I'm saying? I thought I had it. We could get that from Ellen to see.
All right then, so that issue is complete. Back to,
We can pass that on.
Thank you.
That's why it's a question for this.
we had some meeting minutes and some executive session meeting minutes. So anybody want to make a motion for the May 7th and May 16th regular meeting minutes to be approved?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of May 7th and May 16th as published.
I'll second the motion.
We didn't make that May 16th edit.
What was the edit?
Absent select board member.
Oh, I can do that right now. I forgot about that. I'll leave them for Greg to sign later.
Okay. Call for a vote?
No, I
Aye.
have some discussion on this first. There's a portion of this that wasn't given public notice proper time before. It was 28 hours prior to this. There was a section added and voted on, which didn't give the public input, and where it is, does have to do with the wine and the common for the farmer's market. It might have been something people may have wanted to have input in, and I'm concerned that this was done with 28 hours notice and
Which
voted
meeting
on.
minutes which meeting minutes?
On the
you
May
referring to?
16th,
Farmers market license.
that was added at 2:25 in the afternoon on Monday, just 28 hours. Am I doing that wrong? Tuesday, Wednesday, probably 48, 52 hours before instead of the 72 hours before.
It's only required 48, not 72.
Actually,
2 days.
I thought it was 3 days.
agenda items can be added right up until the meeting. A meeting cannot be posted within the 48 hour.
But the precedent we've been
guys-
trying to
Correct.
present is we do not add agenda items any later than we would post a meeting.
Correct.
Which is a
but the-
48-hour notice,
The
correct?
legal part of that is.
Understood.
Yeah, that's all I was correcting.
Okay.
The legals.
Because I
part
thought we
of that-
normally did 3 days before it, is when we typically posted on things.
No, 48.
3 days is.
48
because-
is what we call for the
Thursday.
minimum,
Yeah.
but because Thursday is normally the
Because
working day to
because
have
Friday's-
it.
Friday's not a
Because
business
Friday's
day.
not a business day for us, we have to go the extra day.
Correct.
Gotcha. That's my only concern. I don't want to
Okay.
have anyone complain that they didn't get a chance to speak on it
Agreed.
because we didn't give them time for it. Okay, ready to vote.
All right, any further discussion? Call for vote?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll leave both of those meeting minutes, Greg, in your folder,
Sure.
just so you can sign off, because I'll make that one correction. And it'll just be easier if I leave them both in there.
Mhm.
All right, we have some executive session minutes not for release for May 15th, 2017 and March 19th, 2018.
Is that one of those that you wanted further discussion?
Hmm?
Is one of those the ones that you wanted further discussion?
We'll just schedule another executive session if we
So we
want to
can
do
just
that.
table that if you want?
Yeah, are these both the same subject, or is one police, one's the other? I forget.
I'm not sure, so
Okay.
if we wanna just table that.
We'll table that and then work through that.
Thank
Not a
you.
big deal.
On May 7th, there was 2 different issues, because one I was recused from, for sure.
Oh, right, no, this is going back to,
The other ones,
2017
go way back. Oof.
was one of them, so they might be the same
It might
issue.
be
It
the
took a
same-
long
it
time
might
on
be the
that.
same issue, yeah.
Not a big deal. All right, so meeting minutes are done. Does anybody have any public comment at this time? Okay then. We'll move on to some old business. We had a shared economic development coordinator agreement that we've been working through with Hardwick and a few of the other towns. Oakham, New Braintree, Hubbardston, Barre, Hardwick. Do you have anything you want to present on that?
And nothing further, nothing that we didn't discuss the last one, but we did change or make that one amendment that was discussed to remove the paragraph that referred to the 90 days prior to the end of the contract.
Terminate to 1 year.
Yeah, so it's basically 1 year and that is it.
Okay.
It still says excess funds will be held over with approval if we should decide to do it every year. So that was the only thing I think we had concern with was the termination time of it. So I'd make a motion to approve this draft of our agreement.
I know that there's been a hard copy circled throughout the towns as an original. Two other boards had meetings tonight, so I'll get the original to us for signature, so we don't have it tonight for official sign.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All right, call for a vote.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Just to clarify, at this time, it's 1 year and it's completely covered by a grant, so it's no funds from our, to include this additional percentage of personnel. Next item is a Stanton grant letter of support. This is regarding, I believe, K-9 inclusion into the police force. Chief of Police is interested. Would you like to explain a little?
Thank you. Basically, in order for us to apply for the Stanton grant, which is $25,000 towards the purchase of the dog, the training of the dog, the upfitting of the cruiser with the dog cage, and any equipment that you might be able to get leftover monies, and you have to put a cage at the handler's house, an outdoor cage, so all that is covered in the grant. In order for us to go forward with the program, we have to know if we qualify for the grant. So, as I had said to you once before, it's not binding. If they approve the grant, doesn't mean that we have to take it, doesn't mean we're getting a dog. It just gives me something to put in the proposal that I'm gonna bring to you probably in a couple of months to request a dog, but I'd like to be able to know if we qualify for the grant. In order for us to do that, I've got to send in an application with a letter from the town administrator saying that that you guys support the program. That's with the knowledge that you haven't approved it, and I don't see it that way. I just need to know if you qualify, so I can tell you whether you can afford it or not through fundraising.
Okay. Do we have that letter drafted yet?
I don't have a firm letter drafted, but as long as you guys are okay with being co-signatories on it, I'll draft a letter tomorrow, sign it on behalf of the board, and send it over to the chief.
Yeah, we'll just do a quick review session, emails. If any of us have comments, you can incorporate as necessary. That works for me. Does that work for you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion?
I would make a motion that we send the chief the required letter to support the grant so he can finish his application for it.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Okay, call for a vote.
Aye?
Aye. Thank you very much, Chief.
And Chief, I thought, just before you leave, that the ceremony the other night was very nice, and very good.
I appreciate your participation. It meant a lot to the officers.
That's good, thank you.
You don't want purple? Just up here. Thank you.
Okay. We've got,
I'm going away.
Yeah.
next agenda item is reviewing the Finance Committee appointment bylaw. It was submitted by a selectman with a request to put it on the warrant. Do you have anything you would like to bring up on this?
No, I see they're in the warrant. The language looks pretty good, except for we might want to just space out one of them, so it's not like a run-on sentence.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
We want to space out one of them, the second bylaw change, so it's not a run-on sentence. It says change it as follows. Then it just continues to say section 4 and section 5, instead of separating them, section 4 and then another little paragraph, section 5, to clarify for people.
Okay, I think I just copied and pasted whatever was submitted.
Yeah, it was, the delivery process was a pain in the tush. I don't know what's up with, I think I wrote on my computer, but I think what I used is Open Office and it wasn't compatible with.
Yeah, it keep on coming through as like some
Yeah,
zip file.
it wasn't coming through right. And I finally got a picture of it to send, and I was lucky you could blow it up enough to get it, but just to space it out, so where it's, once it says as follows, return the line and drop it so it says section 4, then at the end of that sentence, drop it so it says section 5, bullet lines under as follows,
Okay.
as opposed to what.
Can we go through, you can go through it with me after when we do
Sure.
the warrant articles? So
Yep.
I'll make the corrections right here, 'cause,
Yeah, it's easy, it's
we plan on,
just makes it not read like a big run-on sentence.
yeah, we plan on going through these tonight, and hopefully you guys will accept them and vote. And if so, I'm gonna print them and we'll sign it today.
Okay.
That's my plan. So if we can go through that after.
What I'll do is, because it's gonna pretty much get hit by another agenda item later, we'll table further discussion until we hit the warrant articles themselves and get into discussion on those. I do know that there were comments made during the finance committee meeting when we reviewed it, so we'll bring those back to the table later in the meeting. Recalled officials bylaw update. Similarly, did you have anything you would like to bring up on this?
Well, that's what I'm talking about, the space in the other one.
Oh, okay.
That's the one that needed the
All right.
space.
What I'd like to do is take both of these, because they're both gonna be warrant article discussions, and we'll just move them to that agenda topic and take it in order when we move on, rather than hit it twice.
Can I ask a question, Matt? So
Yes,
you're gonna go through the whole warrant after you speak about this? And so we have to wait till the article comes up to comment on it? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
that's what I'm saying.
Because it's Article 42, I think it is?
Well, we'll try to be quick. I understand, but I feel like it's splitting up the agenda items too much by doing that. I think it'd be better to just go through it and we hit it all at once. Which is the next item. Review town meeting articles, vote and sign warrant. Let's get all the way down to that list. Yes, indeed, we did have, I believe it was 42 articles. Of that, we had about 9, I think, amendments to the Code of Barre. The majority of the others were either repetitive, recurring annual items, or capital request items. But we'll start from the top, choosing town officers. We vote on every one of these, right?
If you wanted to group some together, I'm fine with that too. I can tell you which ones are the housekeeping ones at the beginning if you'd like.
I would like to start with Articles 1 through 4. These are the regularly recurring items.
Through 7 is.
But 5 I got a question on, so I don't want to just lump that in without further discussion.
Okay.
Are you guys familiar with, do you have any comments on, do we have a motion to approve Articles 1 through 4? Hi, Carl.
Nothing on marijuana tonight.
Well,
Yes, in the bylaw.
whether we're putting them on the warrant, but not so much discussion of
Okay,
my guess. I still haven't seen your guys' actual draft bylaw yet.
all right.
Did we get a motion?
Negative.
Can I get a motion to approve Articles 1 through 4?
Sure, I move to approve Articles 1 through 4 as they're written for the town warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye. Item 5, revolving funds. This is more the general request to set up revolving funds, if I'm correct, as we normally have already done, or previously approved revolving funds. I thought because of the pending medical marijuana facility that may be starting up in FY19, that we may want to put into here a specific revolving fund request to create the revolving fund for the money received and expended, so that we can use that to justify whether that money was actually warranted for the burden
Yes.
the facility
So,
put on the town.
I believe that was, yeah, I think under the law, it's 53.5 ones.
Yeah, if it
I will
falls
double
under the
check
same
that.
revolving fund bylaw, it can be part of our table.
Yeah.
We have a
there's-
table with all the different revolving funds
But do we
listed,
have a description on how each revolving fund can be written?
Yes. Cause they're submitted to the
But do you
accountant.
have one for this item I just spoke of?
Not yet, but what
So
I'm
it's
saying
not
is
on
it
the
do-
table, is what I mean.
It doesn't need a special article, I was explaining, it can go under this one, under a
Right.
set table. In the booklet, there's a table, on this warrant, there's not a table.
Okay,
But in the booklet, and it itemizes each revolving fund, what its purpose is, and what the amount, the total amount that they can use in that revolving fund is.
okay.
We still don't need to establish the fund, though? That would seem,
We-
You would
we already
establish the-
have it.
You basically kind of like setting the amount that's being expended for, where it says, here's the warrant article, and then you come up and say, and this is what we recommend.
All right, my
So,
experience
it's
was
just-
each fund had to be approved
Yeah.
by
I would think. we
city
could
council in
establish-
the city or the town. It can't just be randomly established by the select board or,
Right,
we can't-
it'll be one motion under the 53.5 motion to establish that account.
We may have to revisit that, 'cause
okay.
it
But the
seems-
details of what that doesn't have to be part of that approval process?
Each
It would seem that
department
we would have
submits.
to, it would seem that we would have to, before we take a new source of money and expend it, that we'd have to at least get that approval through the town, I would think.
Well, you are on that on this article that we're talking about, Article
Approves the
5.
development of that account.
That will put it into place, yes, because the revolving funds are good for a year, it doesn't
But we
carry
don't need
over.
the town to approve the actual terms of use of that revolving fund just to create the account?
No. the
My
terms-
understanding, they're approving similarly what a charge would be for a committee on how you can use that money when you create that revolving fund, not just, you can create the revolving fund.
That's not my understanding of it.
Okay. I'm not saying I'm right, I'm just saying that's
I'm
where I
not
was
saying
coming
I'm
from.
right neither.
It's more like creating another line item under the omnibus budget.
Claire has input.
Yes, Claire.
Now, this is just setting up revolving funds for the town. When they list those out, those are the actual funds, and they have how much money can go in, how much money can be spent out of that, and this is pretty specific about what each one is for. On that
Okay.
sheet, if you look back at last year's
Okay.
So,
warrant book.
as long as that's
you'll
added to the sheet.
understand. Yeah,
I just want to make sure we're
So you're
presenting to
saying
the
add it to
town
the
what we
sheet.
should, that's all. And I didn't know if that was enough detail.
And we also
It'll
don't
be-
wanna not use the money as it's designated, or that disqualifies the purpose of having the donation.
All right, so, any further discussion? Do we have a motion? I'm doing this backwards.
Is that the only one you're after? Do you wanna go up for 6 and 7 at the same time?
4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we'll do, do we have a motion?
Motion to accept Articles 5, 6, and 7 as they're written for the town warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I have a question on that. I know
Yes.
it's on there every year. The access and cable related fund,
Yeah, so
what
that's,
exactly is that?
our cameras that
Yeah.
these guys record, Charter pays us a fund, amount of
Okay.
money. It goes into this fund, and this is just allowing us to expend that money, because it's going
Okay.
into like a revolving fund, but it's a special fund.
I wasn't sure that it
Yep.
was coming from charter.
This is one of those ones that the legislature actually picks out and says you have to do a separate vote on. Rather
Okay.
than, it's not, it doesn't
Mhm.
fall under 53.
You know, if we kept these meetings more animated, we might get our ratings up and get more money from Charter.
There you go.
Just a thought.
Okay. Could you clarify MGL Chapter 26A, Section 21A, as it's written in the description? That's Article 7.
So they, the assessors have one part-time position that's actually a board member that's in the omnibus budget that actually, that pays that person's salary. Adopting this allows that,
Okay.
allows that to happen.
And this is an annual
Mhm.
re-up of that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any further question? Call for vote?
Aye.
Okay. Article 8, Board of Assessors Property Evaluations, 3-year required property evaluation. They're requesting funds of $35,200 towards that effort. I have a motion?
Motion to approve Article 8 for the town warrant is written.
Second.
Any further questions? All right, call for vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Article 9, amendments to appropriations of source funds for fiscal year 2018. If I recall, when I had asked the question before, this was about individual line items of a previous account, I believe it was the water account, didn't add up properly on the what was presented to town, so the total didn't actually incorporate one of the line items above. And because of that, we just need to go before the town and show the typo correction, and so we can move the funds appropriately. Do we have a motion to accept?
I'll make the motion that we place Article 9 as written on the town meeting warrant.
Second?
Any further discussion? All right, call for vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Article 10, police union contract acceptance. The previous police union contract expired, let's see if I do the math right, June 30th, 2017. It took us a little over a year to finalize the contract, so now we're presenting a 3-year contract that would go from July 1st, 2017 to
18.
June
Oh, you're right,
30th,
17.
2021.
Yes. No. 20.
21.
17.
2020.
17 to 2020.
2020.
Now you jumped a year. I jumped a year on the first side. So it
That's
was
my
starting
mistake.
July.
I was working
No,
a different
'cause I
thing
did
earlier today and I got my dates confused. I apologize.
3-year
Yes.
contract.
It's a 3-year contract starting July 1st, 2017.
Previous year.
So this is addressing the contract itself and approving the FY18 funds to, correct? This is also including that, so.
It's so very confusing.
The $12,000 listed here is to approve FY18
Retroactive.
costs based on the final negotiated terms of the contract. So it is retro pay due to the year it took to get the contract negotiated.
What's the dollar amount, Matt? We didn't have that at finance.
Yeah.
We are showing a $12,000.
12,000?
Yep.
That's
Basically,
what it's
they-
gonna be?
They received no COLA or any pay increases last year. They were frozen in their contract term from previous year till the contract was settled. And while the rest of the town received a COLA, they did not. And basically, that's the amount that they're getting. Would have been a COLA for last year that everyone else did receive.
Yeah.
That's the first year.
That wasn't given to us, Greg, at the finance committee.
No, I'm saying, that's what,
Yeah, we had
that's,
to work
that's
on that
that's
number,
what
Yeah,
it is.
so.
That's why I
Yep.
wondered what exactly.
Yeah, and that number's gotta be fun to figure out, because
It might
it's
That's
gonna
gonna
go back
change
to.
the amount that the stabilization recommendation to.
It also locks in the next 2 years in the budget.
Yeah.
So year
Do you
2 and
notice
year
that
3 also get locked in.
stabilization?
No, it's gonna
Not on
come
this
out of free
funding.
cash, but it's gonna change the amount recommended.
My understanding is legally,
Instead of
once
70,
you
it'll
approve
be
the first year,
58.
the next year you can't change the approval for that.
Correct,
Just a
but that
guess,
goes in
and
the
not just pulling a
omnibus.
random line out.
And that's
of
all
the
I
air.
was
It's
saying,
like
it
a random
locks it in,
Pretty much.
not that
That's what we're
it,
looking at.
Yeah, not
right.
this one.
It's not shown in that value,
Next
correct.
Wednesday.
Okay.
It's a lot of
And-
purchase.
All right, so
Just one, yeah.
do I have a motion to,
Can I just have one quick amendment to that? Just the wording of Article 10, instead of police union acceptance, it should be funding of police union contract. Because technically they're voting to fund the contract, not accept the contract.
is it not both? Once
No,
you
they
approve
only-
the first year, you approve all years.
Right, but they vote to fund the contract, not to.
Okay.
The town doesn't vote to accept the contract, they vote to fund it.
Say that again, please?
Understood,
Funding of-
understood.
Funding of police union contract.
Just the
Yeah.
bold print up top.
Yeah,
That's all. That's
that's
it.
fine.
Just one thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Any further discussion? All right, call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye. Article 11, FY 18 snow removal overtime and part-time, or, yeah, overtime and part-time costs. $26,688 is an overrun that we're looking to fund.
Lots of fun. Make a motion to accept Article 11 as written.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Where is that coming out of, Andrew?
Free cash.
Any further? Okay, call for vote? Oh,
Aye.
call for motion? I'm getting ahead of myself.
Did you make a motion?
Greg made the
Made the
motion.
motion, then we had discussion. You're right. we're on
That was
vote.
that quick?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That was good.
Call for vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Getting ahead of myself.
We're going faster than you.
Article 12, FY 18 snow removal expense account, $116,772, also from free cash. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that we place Article 12 on the warrant as written.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call for vote.
Aye.
Okay, the next three are three articles that are being placed as they went through the election ballot.
This is
These
ours.
are all recreational marijuana items that were put before the town in April on the election ballot, and now will be put before the town at town meeting. This had to go in both places based on state regulations because the town voted as a majority to accept recreational marijuana under the state ballot of 2016. And because the town approved it, we have to present it on the ballot as well as at the town floor meeting in order to see if we could prohibit any activities of recreational marijuana. So the three articles are, we'll start with Article 13, amend Code of Barre, to see if the town will vote to amend the Code of the Town of Barre zoning, Chapter 140, by inserting a new section 14011.3 to read as follows. Shall the town prohibit the establishment of marijuana retailer storefront within the town of Barre as described in the state of Massachusetts draft regulations 935 CMR 500, adult use of marijuana, or take any other action relative thereto?
Is that the exact language? I'm just making, that's what I was acting in before.
It is,
We
but
need
I
to
do
verify it's the
question,
exact language.
This is exactly what was submitted to us.
Okay.
this is exactly what was on the ballot is what we want to confirm,
If we need
otherwise
to
we should
remove
make
and
the
replace
words.
later, we can if we don't have it accurate, but we need to make sure that the language is exact.
I got another thing we're gonna have to, I would like to, review is, this can't be the wording of the bill or the bylaw, because it's a question. It's shall the town prohibit, doesn't make it a bylaw, it just, so it's not written as the bylaw would be written. So I do question how that gets presented to the town and how that actually becomes bylaw. But if it's word for word, it may be, we go through this, they say yes, and then another bylaw down the way shows that prohibition. So this may just be the approval to present another bylaw later that then makes that prohibition.
Right.
I just wanted to double check that.
My concern is here, we're doing two things. We're inserting in the bylaw, making the amendment, which we don't have to do yet. We have until December for the moratorium to put these in. We can put them in bylaws in the special town meeting. All we really need to do is make sure the town will affirm the 3 votes they took before and keep it simple. Once those are affirmed, then we have a little more time to write the bylaws and make sure they're inserted properly and done properly. There's no need to rush it like this is to combine the two, and I'd just like to see the very clean language we had on the ballot back on this warrant. And as long as the town makes the same 3 approvals, then we establish our bylaws. And if they should strike any one of these 3s, then we have to begin with bylaws that are permissible to activities that are not denied here.
I believe these are to establish bylaws.
Right, these say they are, but we're just asking if the town's gonna prohibit it. And they already said yes once. Once they say yes again, then we can establish a bylaw. This is trying to establish a bylaw with the second vote at the same time.
But this is to amend the code of Barre and insert this section. I get what you're saying.
Right, but I'm saying that's putting the cart ahead of the
Actually,
horse.
right, no, she's bringing up the point I brought up earlier. It states to amend it to read as follows, so this is saying this is how the bylaw will be.
Right.
And so the bylaw is actually reading it as a question, which won't work as a law.
We need to do the bylaw later and just put the vote out. Will the town vote to,
Let me just suggest.
deny
something.
the sale of marijuana and retail shops?
It sounds to me then, what Greg is saying is,
No
you're
bylaw.
looking to strike these articles then.
Yes. And place we can open the warrant later and place those 3 questions on as they were listed on the ballot. And if the town confirms those 3 things again,
I wish the planning board had
that's,
stayed because.
that's time.
These are their articles.
I know, but
We
we can't make a bylaw yet
Town
because they haven't
council would
approved
be
it.
more
Well, he was
appropriate.
here last.
We need to
review
reapprove
these with
it.
us.
We need to approve the
Not
vote a
here.
second time before the bylaw's made,
He was with the finance.
and then it can be written properly.
The wording in quotations is exactly how it was presented on the ballot.
Right, and we can't make that a bylaw. We just need to, shall they vote to prohibit it? And if they do, then we make a bylaw that the town has prohibited and we shall not have the sale. Not all at once. We're just pushing too much at once. There's no need, there's no rush. Had we not put this on the warrant, we'd be in trouble because of a special town meeting where there was little time for bylaws after. I always assumed we would just put the 3 questions on here as articles, let the town vote on the 3 specific questions, again, without everything around it. And then if they affirm all 3 of those votes, then we have bylaws to write. And we can do that at the special town meeting, as long as it's done before the moratorium in December, we're fine. And that would give them time to clean that up, run it by council. They're probably very close to where they want to be. They seem to have sections and portions where they want them and how they want to number it and fit it. But I would just like to see these 3 articles stricken, and we'll have to open the code.
Can I voice my
Add them later.
concern?
Yes.
We're running out of time to get to town meeting. And town council was at last Wednesday's meeting to go over these. We have deadlines we have to hit to get this warrant posted. Just, I understand what you're saying, Greg, but
We can open the warrant, remove Article 13, replace it with our new Article 13 that reads just as the town ballot did. That's simple enough to do.
It should just take out.
We can strike Article 13 here, then we can reopen the warrant later and add a new Article 13, 14, and 15.
I guess, so I'll voice a little more concern.
She's explaining the amount of time she wants to be able to have the warrant posted for the public to see leading up to
We can
the
make
meeting.
these changes.
We're running out of
We
time.
can make the changes tonight.
Well,
There's no reason we can't.
Well,
We have the language as it was
So
written.
what do you want to
Well-
make the recommendation to strike basically the first sentence of each, 13, 14, 15?
honestly, I would want town council's input on changing these.
I think it's easier to strike
Just
it
a
and replace it than
Go ahead,
to
Claire.
amend it.
The way I understand it, when I questioned about it, when it went on the ballot, they said if it passes on the ballot, then you have to have the exact wording on your town warrant and vote those 3 questions. It has to be the same wording.
Here's my
You don't
opinion.
want the
Here's the,
government saying, no, that you can't do that because
No.
you didn't word it right.
here's the mistake. I believe we misworded it from the beginning. Because we used the word shall the town, rather than do you approve a bylaw that is written as such? And then you write out the bylaw. Instead, we wrote a question of, do you want us to prohibit it?
Right.
And everybody said yes. Well, that can't be the exact wording of the bylaw you get approved.
No, that was the right
But
question.
that's how we presented it. And therefore, it won't work.
What
You're
you
gonna have to
do
repeat a
is
town
put
meeting and an
question.
election ballot again to make that work.
No,
You
No.
cannot fix it here.
no, not true.
You've got to do what
You-
Greg's saying.
He's wrong.
I'm not wrong.
You have to put the
I'm
words
Read the ballot
exactly.
wording. The ballot wording is, shall the town prohibit.
I
So,
understand.
now read a bylaw that says, shall the
We're not
town
ma-
prohibit.
We're not making a bylaw, that's a point. We're not gonna amend the code. We're just taking a vote like passing a budget. Shall we
That's-
pass the budget? Yes. Shall we say we're not gonna sell marijuana? Yes. Then once they've said that,
So you
then we write-
revise this.
Then we write the bylaw later, once the town has agreed.
I think-
So it's like Andrew
Alright,
said, just take out the
here's-
first
here's the
sentence.
thing. I think
I
that,
don't think we can.
I
And
think
you
you,
just
I
start
think
from
you
here.
need, just looking at this quick, I think you need to do this for one procedural fact. Amending section 140 is a zoning change. This
Yes.
isn't a zoning law. This is a prohibition under MGL. So you're not amending the zoning code.
Actually, no, it is zoning.
If it was
You're
zon-
prohibiting
if it was-
commercial use in town.
If you were talking about allowing it in one area and not allowing it in another area,
No,
then
it's not
it
allowing
was-
it at all.
exactly.
Right.
So it's not
Which-
so it's not zoning.
It is, that's why, in my
Zoning,
understanding, is
but-
that's why it was presented where it needed to go through both floors of voting.
Zoning laws require a 2/3 of vote at town meeting.
Exactly.
This requires, to ban it requires 50-50, so it's not a zoning law.
51 here,
Or more than 50%.
more than 50,
Yeah,
majority.
yeah.
Can I
Where
make
did you
one more-
find that?
Can I make one
So,
more attempt at this?
What do you mean?
I mean, I'm just curious how you know this.
How do I-
Because
how
leading
do I
all the way
know?
up till today, I thought it was a zoning ordinance.
No. It's
So
not an
what
amendment.
makes it not a zoning ordinance?
It's the fact that you're banning it under the Mass State regulations of medical, or of marijuana.
If we're
It's
permitting it,
not-
it's zoning.
Right.
If
If it
we're
was
permissible-
zoning, it should be considered a prohibited practice. It's not, under regulated under chapter 40A.
But it is, because we're not banning all marijuana. We're banning specific practices of marijuana,
Right, but.
which means it's
but the
zoning. You're
state-
cutting it up.
The state allows you to do that under the cannabis control regulations. So this isn't a regulation that falls under the zoning act. This is a regulation that falls under the Cannabis Control Commission's.
No, I believe that that was based on the ballot, not on the town meeting. The ballot was the 50% yes. Now you can bring it and do a zoning law to follow through with it. Because we are not doing all recreational marijuana in its entirety that falls under that MGL. We are doing parts and pieces we're trying to prohibit. And so it now breaks it out.
Our instructions were
That's my
designed to be
understanding.
presented twice in the same language. And if we're not, to say we're making a bylaw or a zoning change, anything, a zoning bylaw would be if it was approved and we had marijuana, then it falls under zoning to decide where the retails can exist for it. That's why that would fall under zoning. If it's banned completely, then it doesn't fall to zoning, it's just banned and prohibited. We asked the town if they want to prohibit it. Because it was approved earlier, it takes 2 votes to stop that. We've had the first vote, we need the second vote of the same language. All that does is express the town's, this is just to see if the town wants to express its opinion to prohibit it. So if the town once again says, yes, we will prohibit these actions, then it's time to write bylaws, but not until then. Because we don't know if we're saying prohibit, or if we should be saying it's zoning and figure out where it's going. We haven't had that discussion. That discussion happens July 1st, when we sit back down with the results from this and decide if we are prohibiting all 3 phases, or prohibiting 2 but not the 3rd, and if we're going forward with one of these 3 phases, where it's gonna be, and that goes to the zoning bylaws. And that's when the amendments and changes are done. But predicting one set of results and changes here and not the other set is really kind of silly. We have to have the straight, clean language, exactly as we did on the ballot. And once the town has voted by ballot vote and by meeting floor, once that's done and repeated, their wishes will be done. And then we will create bylaws. To create them now before that second vote is putting the cart before the horse. So I believe these articles should be removed as they are. Then we can open the warrant later and place new articles on there, which will read exactly as the warrant did, which we can pull out and handwrite them right now and add them. exactly as they were on the ballot. And we can open the warrant before the end of this meeting, insert those 3 articles as Articles 13, 14, and 15, or if you feel better, 13A, 14A, and 15A. And they won't say amend the code, they'll say, you know, ban retail marijuana, ban cafe use, and ban home delivery. And then if the town approves those 3 that way, then we look into bylaws later and we can clean the language up however it best fits. And we have until whenever we set our fall meeting.
All right. I'd like to
Put them forward.
Yeah, really, we're.
table Articles 13, 14, and 15. We can amend, look at, as he's stating, the options to rewrite, open the warrant, close the warrant, address that. I don't even know if we have to open and close it right now because,
It's open. No, it's closed.
It's closed.
well, but
It's closed, right?
It's closed.
Yeah.
It's closed.
do we have a final marijuana bylaw from the planning board yet? Or did they just put in a placeholder article? Because I haven't seen a final. So what I'm saying is I'm just trying to find out, because it's on here, we're voting on it. Are we voting on every last word on this? Or are we voting on the topic and we're gonna allow people to clean up the wording? If it's not a citizen's petition that requires it.
Everything on here should be fine.
Okay then.
I do not see,
Then all right,
correct me if
then.
I'm wrong, but I do not see a zoning,
Without going forward with anything else yet, I think we should just make a motion to remove Articles 13, 14, and 15, take them off. And then, once we put the language together, we can have a motion later to open the warrant, place on Article 13 to read as follows, Article 14 to read as follows, and Article 15 to read as follows. I'd feel
Article
more comfortable
34.
removing these completely, getting all that language out and just putting only the language back in. I don't want to take a chance in amending and doing it wrong. I'd like to remove these 3 articles. So that's my motion.
right.
I vote to remove Articles 13, 14, and 15 from this warrant as they're written.
Further discussion? Claire?
Couldn't you just approve to replace them with the correct wording?
I don't want to chance that because I don't know the legality, but I know we can take it off and I know we can add
Just,
one.
You know,
It wasn't submitted by us, so it was submitted by the planning board, so we can't make that decision based on how they want it worded.
because then you could leave it as Article 13, 14, 15, where you've got it set up that way, and then Fay just has to type the new thing in it, rather than renumbering all the.
I would call it 13.1, 13
No.
14.1,
No,
and
we
15.1.
could also just table approval or denial of these. Until that, what you want is presented and possible.
I feel better taking them right off the warrant and putting the proper wording in, because we're not
And
after
you're
code
okay with it?
amendments
Hmm?
here. Put it this way, I want to take the code amendments off,
Right.
period.
And do you want to take them off or do you want to table it?
Well, I'd rather table it I'd rather see them just stay on and then,
Because we can make that same vote just before if we have to actually vote them off, Greg, that's all I'm saying. All that can happen when we figure out what the wording should be and how we should present it. Whether we vote them off, open up the warrant, pull in 3 new ones, close the warrant, and then approve them to be on the warrant. I'm just suggesting that.
Once again, we're talking about the time frame here, and
That's all gonna happen at the same meeting.
I thought we all understood that we had to present the exact same language, and this has a lot before and a lot after, and is making a code change. It's far more than the language it was on the ballot. So-
Okay.
So I want it all gone.
Okay, that's his motion.
That's my motion, that's
All right.
why.
You second it?
I'll second it.
Call for vote?
All right.
All right,
Aye. All right, omnibus budget, finance committee, you're good with it after last week, is that correct? Or was that not your final vote?
We haven't voted on any of
No.
them.
Okay, so we're not dealing with
Voting.
final
Right,
again.
next- next
Voting to
meeting.
just put the word in.
Yeah, you're not voting.
They haven't voted on the,
You just need to vote on this article, not so much the whole.
no, it just was just like the last thing. Are we voting on something that's final, or are we voting on something that's a placeholder?
Placeholder.
So this is a placeholder,
It's just the article, yeah.
okay. Got a motion?
Motion to accept Article 16, FY 2019 omnibus budget is written.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call for vote.
Aye.
Article 17, sewer enterprise budget. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to accept Article 17 as written.
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Have a good
Thank you,
night.
Sam.
Night, Sam.
Any discussion? Call for vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Article 18, FY 19 water enterprise budget.
Motion to accept Article 18 is written.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call for vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Article 19, JSB 45 actuarial. It's annual audit, correct?
Actually,
I'll make a motion, we place Article 19 as on the warrant as published.
Second.
Any discussion? Call for vote.
Aye.
Article 20, other post-employment benefits fund, put another $5,000 into it.
Weren't we trying to do more than that?
We did 25,000 last year to start, and the program started with then do 5,000 after.
5,000, well, they wanted to increase it 5,000 per year. I put 5,000 in there as a placeholder amount in the budget, but left it kind of up to your discretion if you wanted to increase that amount at all. At least 5,000 is a significant contribution.
Is
It's
that
not-
sufficient enough to get us where we need to be before these benefits need to be paid, or do we need, were we
That
supposed to
was-
increase this? I thought it was supposed to increase every year.
It's supposed to.
No, the original, as I recall, when the treasurer presented it, it was a $25,000 initial start of the fund, and then it was 5,000 a year after that for like 10 years.
On top of the 25 that you started with.
Right, like building on a 401K, so you add another 5,000 each year
constant
after
line
that.
item- constant
And I
line item
thought there was
5,000.
like in 30 years, it should become self-sufficient to cover
Okay,
other post-employment benefits that we know of today.
okay, I just wanna make sure we,
Adding
Doing
more
enough and
only
not getting
helps,
behind.
don't get me wrong, so if we were able to throw in 10 one year, it
Yeah,
only
we're-
helps.
We're already putting little enough in the stabilization, and I'd rather not do more if we don't have to, as long as we're meeting the threshold.
Yeah, I mean, 5,000 is considerable considering what our OPEB liability is. It's not the full funding that obviously they say each year, 35, 40, 45, 50, they want you to go up by those $5,000 increments. But in reality, that's really difficult for us as a community to try to achieve. So at least putting money toward it, $5,000 a year is a good investment toward that. It's not, zero and just saying, yeah, we'll worry about it.
Okay.
Um,
I'll make a motion to place Article 20 on the warrant as listed.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call for a vote.
Aye.
Article 21, request for a police cruiser of 50,000.
Make a motion to accept Article 21 as written.
Second.
It was increased from 48.
Okay. I was gonna say
Yeah.
about 48.
Sorry. It's gonna be part of the amendments that you get clear.
And that's coming out of what, Andrew?
Free cash.
Any further discussion? Call for a vote.
Aye.
Who made that motion? I'm sorry.
I did.
Article 22, Felton Field improvements, $15,000 request.
Make a motion to accept Article 22 as written for the warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
What's that coming out
The Felton Field improvements is scheduled for free cash.
I just want to say I'm glad that the Finance Committee did look into that and helped them with it, because I think it's important for the 4-H that we do some contribution, and I'm glad you made it in there.
Okay. Call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Article 23, Wachusett Greenways, request $1,000 to contribute towards trail and pathway maintenance, etc., operating costs. Do we have a motion?
You have this in the budget or no?
Free cash would be a small enough contribution that we could pull from there.
I don't know if we finally did it last year, but I think they wanted to and we never paid.
Yeah, we haven't done it yet.
Yeah,
so
I make a motion to put Article 23 on it.
Maybe Greg should be filled in on what the finance committee. We went back and forth with that because Wachusett Greenways only comes just over the Barre line,
Mhm.
and then it goes to Central Rail Trails. That's
Right.
going to be doing the trail through Barre. So our question was, do you give it to the Wachusett Greenways, or do we give it to Central Rail Trail?
Yeah. We didn't give it last year.
Because it doesn't go through Barre.
Yeah, it doesn't go through, but it goes to, and I don't know the impact it really has for people coming down and doing things in town when it comes through, but the hope is it does, and I think making a contribution for one of the 2 years isn't bad. And if we want to go the rail trail next year and look more into that, because it's going to go through the town, then that would be a wise choice.
So we were up near, we haven't voted on it.
Yeah, and I think that's why we never made the money go into it last year. Last year was tight to begin with, but, you know, it's much more involved in other towns and it passes right through. But yeah, I don't have a problem with that donation for 1 year out of the 2 they've asked for it, and
We can put the article on, and then if we're not gonna fund it.
the town can still say no, they don't.
Yeah, they can say no, or
It's
we
not
can.
up to us, but.
Or if we don't have, decide we don't have the money for
But
it,
they
we
can
just
make that,
table it.
can make that same discussion on town floor, that just so people know what they're voting on, and they may have mixed emotions, and,
Selectmen can vote it yes, and finance committee may say no,
yep.
and let the town vote the way they want.
And the town may not care what any of us say, and just they may have a feeling on it or not, but I don't see a problem with that being on the warrant anyways, put it that way.
No.
We do have a cushion there that if they decide to vote, we could afford it from free cash.
Okay.
And that was my first question before I approved to put it on, to make sure we could.
Call for vote?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Article 24, voting machines and polling pads, $32,550.
Motion to accept Article 24 is written.
So are we estimating?
You've taken off the Article 24 for roadside mower?
No, we actually
That's-
inserted this one in, it was submitted, we just forgot to include it as part of the.
No, it's Article
Yeah, it
25.
didn't make it to the draft, but we had
Sorry.
it.
Well, can you tell me what it is?
They need new voting machines, polling pads, a little bit outdated, and I believe the technology catches up to what more the state's using.
Yep, basically it brings it, we have a number of elections this year,
What's-
they're,
What's the dollar figure?
32,550. Is that a
free
free
cash.
cash?
Yep.
All this stuff is gonna beat up free cash, obviously.
Yeah, basically the capital plan targets free cash is the appropriation
Right.
method.
Okay. Any further discussion? Do we have a motion on this yet?
Mhm.
Call for vote.
Aye.
Okay. I'd like to take the next 3 articles right now and just open it up for discussion. Articles 25, 26, and 27, roadside mower, street sweeper, and skid steer requested by the highway department. We don't have dollar values on this or source on this. What's the recommendation on this?
The recommendation would be to pull them off at this time.
Okay.
They weren't part of the recommended capital plan put together for this year, and we wouldn't have a source of funding for any of these 3, even at what their, generally estimated amounts are. The roadside mower, I know there was still some question as to whether or not that was going to be funded from Chapter 90. I don't have a firm answer on that yet.
Okay.
So, but if it was, then it wouldn't be, you wouldn't have to go to town meeting warrant. to
Standard
just fund it.
select board business.
Right. So having it as a town meeting warrant article without a funding source is kind of new. But we are working on adding these in as long-term capital items.
Okay. Before we get into motions on these 3 items, do we have any further discussion? Any different information that anybody else here has on that?
No. No.
This isn't to imply that it isn't a need, it's more to imply that we're limited in what we can buy this year.
We are still planning on the dump body though, right?
That's
That
correct,
is
yes.
Planned in.
The mower's coming out of chapter 90 anyway, of this year's
That's-
chapter 90.
That's what.
So when it all
yeah.
goes through, right?
Right.
Right. And once we get the bids back on Wednesday for the bridge replacement, we should be able to issue a contract and then give a notice to proceed. Once the notice to proceed is issued, then the state should be releasing our chapter 90 funding.
And then that can be approved at a regular meeting out of chapter 90.
Correct.
All right, so I see no reason for that to be there.
So can I get a motion to not approve Articles 25, 26, and 27 for this warrant?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to strike Articles 25, 26, and 27 from this warrant.
Okay, I will second that.
Any further discussion?
What are those articles?
It's request to purchase a new roadside mower, a new street sweeper, or a new skid steer. Okay, Article 28, all-season dump body, $60,000, transfer from free cash. I have a
Yeah.
motion. Got a mosquito.
See that? So that dump body is a dump body truck or just a dump body?
A dump body for an existing truck.
For $60,000?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Said the current dump body is unserviceable and needs immediate replacement.
Cheaper than buying the whole new truck, that's for sure.
What year truck would be going on?
I'm sorry, what?
What year truck would the dump body be going on?
I don't have that information right here, I just know that it's an existing truck that, other than the dump body, would still be serviceable for the plant.
Did you know the truck, I mean, Greg said you might get a new truck.
Well, it depends on the value of the new truck. I think these new trucks.
Yeah, new truck is $200,000. So, and from speaking with Jason, he did indicate that this was a newer truck, and just the body was not the correct body for the use.
Okay.
So,
Okay. I make a motion to approve Article 28 as written for the dump body.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call for vote.
Aye.
Aye. Article 29, 10-wheel truck with all-season dump body, and Article 30, hydraulic excavator and tag trailer. Similarly, we don't have numbers on this, and I do not believe we are prepared to fund these purchases, am I correct?
Yeah, well, the 10-wheel dump truck with the dump body, that is estimated to cost around $210,000. We're looking at either next year or the year after as far as what funding sources we could go after, whether or not it would be a short-term capital ban, just basically a capital ban or a lease purchase option, whichever one would give us the lowest interest rate to try to do maybe like a 5 or 10 year pay down on it, so that we could just incorporate it and kind of do what we do with the defibrillators and
Yeah, 2 or
article
3.
it the first year and then put it into the warrant the next few years. But I think that that's gonna be more in line with what next year's plan is.
Okay.
When is, I saw in the capital plan, they had plans for replacing engine 4. Is that next year?
We were looking at that, of going after engine 4 for next year. But a lot of that was we're gonna look at kind of what our options were for that. Whether or not it made sense to try to go for a capital debt exclusion vote for that. Because you have the sewer debt falling off this year, so it'd be a very minor tax impact from FY18 or from 19 to 20. The other option is, basically looking at a 30-year ban and roll that in with a truck and seeing if that yielded a lower interest rate.
I hate to put a 30-year anything on a truck.
Or 20, I'm sorry, 20.
But either way,
Yeah.
it's still that, I don't expect, I don't like to see the payments extend beyond the life of the vehicle.
Right.
But my concern there is if we're funding a truck and then funding a dump body, the dump truck, the same year, that's a lot.
Right.
Is it, Is,
I'm sure
I'm
we'll end up-
assuming the capital committee has looked at the debt and things and see what we have available to borrow.
Right.
If it's
We
close
do
to
have a
possible,
good,
so.
we do have a significant borrowing capacity. Right now, we're at only about 4% ratio of our debt to expenses, so we're good on that aspect. The difficult aspect is we don't have the tax levy capacity to just go and do without going to a 2.5, either going to a 2.5% override or a capital override. It would be a lot in 1 year, but if going for them at the same time improves the interest rate to be able to go for them, then it might actually make sense. But there's a lot more to go into it. We push it off to another year to give us that time to really look at. And that might, the capital plan's an evolving document, so, we could make some investments in the next year that maybe improve where we're at. I know that, at least with the, talking to the chief, he was talking about, there possibly being some federal access property that might improve the fleet for an additional year, that might improve us for next year. We'll really have to see where we're at the next fiscal year to make a firm determination.
This is not unlike the cruisers. We need to pay attention to the fleet of this condition
Right.
of it.
Mhm.
But for this instance, these two items, we're looking,
Yeah,
I
we
guess
don't
I'd
want the
request a
funding.
motion to remove these two items from Article 29 and 30.
And just making sure it wasn't wise to fund one this year some way through
Yeah.
borrowing
Yeah.
and do the fire truck next year rather than both at once.
I think if we borrow next year, it's gonna be more prudent because of the sewer. falling
Dropping
off.
off, so we'll be, all right.
Do I have a motion?
I guess I'll make a motion to strike articles, well, Article 29 for now. We can discuss the other one from the warrant.
Second.
Call for a vote?
Aye.
Aye. Article 30, hydraulic excavator and tag trailer, similar situation.
And what's the intention on that one, the capital plan, was it on there?
This one I
already?
actually didn't have as part of the capital plan. It was submitted as a warrant article. I did look back into an older capital plan and saw that it was requested in the previous year, but I think I need a little bit more information before I figure out exactly where it should fall.
I think the problem is, when these things have come up in the capital plan and not been funded, they just dropped and forgotten about. The need is still there, they don't make it back into the plan for some reason. And it's,
Trying to address that. I mean,
I know.
when we put out.
there's a lot that need to be addressed, unfortunately. The
Right.
whole fleet of a lot of things is,
When we started this back in November, I put it out to everybody, act as though the capital plan doesn't exist. I need to know what your priorities are. This wasn't something that came up at that time, but then it was submitted as a warrant article, so.
any
I
idea
wasn't
why?
prepared.
Is there an issue with the excavator now, or is it?
Not to my knowledge, I have to defer to Jason on that.
Do you guys heard anything? Issues with
Not
it?
aware.
Because I haven't heard anything.
Not a vote.
So I'll make a motion to remove Article 30 from the warrant.
Second.
Call for a vote?
Aye.
Article 31, engine 6 refurbishment, $18,075, transfer from free cash. Motion?
Actually, this one is not a transfer from free cash. This is actually raise and appropriate through the tax rate.
Okay.
Does it say that?
It says it on here.
Raise
but
and
it's
appropriate,
actually-
okay.
It should be raise and appropriate.
I make a motion to accept Article 31 to refurbish engine 6 as
Second.
written.
Any further discussion? Call for a vote?
Aye.
Article 32, brush,
Yeah. Sorry. go ahead.
Article 32, brush truck, $50,000. Is this also a free cash item?
That's actually, I'm gonna request to take that off. Right now, we have a bill in the legislature that's looking to fund this through the state budget. And so if it actually goes through, if it does not end up going through the state budget, I'd rather tackle this at a special town meeting later on. Basically, right now, there's not a big rush on this because they're not even taking orders for 2019 Chevy vehicles that they're looking at. So, I think we're better off pumping the brakes on this train. Just see the recommendation to transfer into stabilization. That's kind of more of the placeholder for later to say if this doesn't get funded, we could go to stabilization.
Do you know what he's asking for brush trucks specifically as opposed to, I mean, right now we're running pickup trucks with 300-gallon tanks and portable pumps.
Chevy 3500, basically spec the same way as the vehicles that the DPW had just purchased, with a utility body on it and transferring the pumping skid unit over to the truck. Be removed during the winter time and be used to replace both their car 2, the inspection vehicle that was taken from the building inspector, and the brush truck. So basically replacing 3 vehicles with 1 vehicle.
So your recommendation is
Strike it for now. and
strike
we'll
it
revisit
for a
at
special town meeting?
If it's not funded through the state budget.
So if the state funds it,
Yeah.
that would be nice. Always nice if they pay for something for us. All right, motion to strike Article 32 from the warrant.
Second.
Call for a vote?
Aye.
Aye. Article 33, transfer to stabilization, currently showing 60,000. That dollar may change based on the recent item we just removed.
And others we added.
Right, so that number will adjust based on the final number.
Yeah.
Have a motion on this?
I have a motion to put Article 33 on the warrant with the number to be disclosed before meeting.
I will second.
Quick question.
Yes.
You had talked about, just so I better understand, the stabilization,
Mhm.
moving this into stabilization is one thing.
Mhm.
You had also talked about free cash that you'd keep the balance, so next year you always have some free cash you know you left from the year before.
Mhm.
And I thought you also talked about possibly free cash capital or something similar to
Right.
that I
Yeah, it was
wasn't
a
quite sure how that
capital
laid out.
Yeah, capital stabilization. Basically, right now where we're at, I've put forward a very aggressive first-year capital plan, so it doesn't really keep back a lot to say, all right, we're gonna reserve some for future capital at this time. You know, if we had a little less need, then I'd say, you know, it might be a good year to start it. Possibly next year. What I actually did was in the enterprise funds, I recommended that they take some of their E&D money and try to start a capital stabilization account to go, because I know that they're gonna have some future capital needs. So it's basically just a new fund to tuck away, dedicated to capital. We can use free cash in stabilization in that same, or free cash less, but stabilization in that, general stabilization in that same manner. Capital stabilization kind of gives it that, we're only going to touch this pool of money for our capital needs.
Yeah.
It's something we can look at in the future. Right now, we have the funds to do what we need to do. It would be a good thing.
So right now, just leaving it in stabilization is fine. We can make the decision on creating a stabilization capital fund in the future.
We can do that.
Are the uses the same, the requirement for 2/3 vote and all that?
Yeah.
Then what's the point of separating it from stabilization?
Only just for.
One's restricted
For
for
your
capital
own, for your own
investments.
restrictions. You know, it's more of just kind of like a, hey, we're making this commitment to to funding our capital needs.
Like that can't be pulled off, set like a
Right,
year
so in
where
other
you
words,
can't fund your.
If we're targeting a truck for 5 years, we start putting money and they just start paying towards that truck in 5 years and it can't get used for anything else.
Pretty
Right,
much.
so
That's right.
it can't be used to cover a
Still need-
shortfall in
Right.
an O&M budget.
Right.
Just gotta be careful how much we put in when we do that, so we
Yep.
don't cause ourselves a
That's it.
problem.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Something
Right.
We don't know, what comes up.
If
we
the
need to
cap,
invest in.
if this capital plan wasn't so aggressive this year, I'd suggest it, but, we really do have a lot of capital needs we have to try to address. So, I thought it was just more prudent that we try to get on top of them, and possibly next year we can look at stuffing some money away to dedicate. But, we still do, are throwing 60,000 aside into our stabilization fund to keep our reserve balance above 5%.
Okay then. Did we vote on that item, Article 33?
Negative.
No.
Has this one been added?
Yes, it was not on the draft sheet.
Okay.
But it was on the plan that you received, in the budget book,
Yeah.
it just wasn't on
Yeah.
this sheet.
Call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we're getting back into some bylaw amendments. What I would like to do at this moment is take a quick second, I gotta run out and back in for a minute or two. If you want, you can start the conversation on the amendment, the
Okay.
Code of Barre marijuana establishments. I think I already know
We
where you
can
stand
wait.
on this.
We'll
Greg.
wait.
And we don't have the language for that yet. What was that? See,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
we
this
don't-
is premature until
Yeah.
the other vote's done.
Right, you're right.
That's what I think.
Right.
That's why I think we're gonna separate those
Yeah.
by language. That might be something, if you can start to pin that out, so we can put it back in and vote on it.
I was just looking to see if they.
But I think that makes sense to proceed that way. They've already voted once. If they vote again, then we make bylaws. I don't see why that would be before.
Only 2 articles. Yes. We have to insert a new section. No. Otherwise, there's not an element to it.
Under this, all these.
So I don't know what the first one, I don't know what that first one alludes to. These next two seem to allude to.
Hmm?
35 and 36 seem to discuss temporary moratoriums, pending the votes that we have coming on, that we're gonna rewrite and put on there.
Yep.
But I don't understand what 34 is doing. There's no language for it.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I think that's just creating that section,
Okay.
I think.
Article 34, amend the Code of Town of Barre. It's, right now it says to see if the town will vote to amend the Code of the Town of Barre zoning, Chapter 140, by inserting a new section 140.11.2, adult marijuana and marijuana establishments, or take any other action there relative thereto.
So what Fay was saying is that's just to establish the section, but it's not actually generating any bylaws, it's just making a section for future use. Is that correct?
I do not believe that's the case. I believe that is what the planning board has been reviewing, going through public hearings and drafting, is to present a bylaw that would be rather comprehensive. They do know there's a couple holes in it, that's why you'll see other articles here talking about extending a temporary moratorium for like consumption sites or retail storefronts or delivery, because those are items,
That we have
at least a
to vote.
couple of them, they're items where they're also not sure that the state has actually set up their plans well enough for us to work bylaws around. So they have my understanding is they were gonna have one and present it to us
I
before
think-
the town
And I
meeting.
think this article is where that would be.
Agreed, I thought he
Yeah,
was
that's
saying
what-
it's just a
no.
placeholder versus.
No, this is that article. So
Right,
if the-
okay, so
If the articles
we're on
at
the
the
same
beginning
page.
which prohibit, say it passes prohibition, this would be tabled.
It says
But if
insert
it
a
goes
new
the other
section.
way, this is there to
Right.
keep
It
going.
says insert the section, not insert a new law. It says insert just a section. It doesn't define what that is. And that's
There
my
is no
con-
140-11 on recreational marijuana
At
at the
this
time,
time.
except the recreational moratorium.
I know.
So
this-
that was
there should-
11.1.
Right, so that should just set the section up. There should be no law under it. It's just a section. Because we can't put a law in unless we vote on it. No one's voting on it here, so.
Oh, no, this,
No, the town
you're
would
not
vote
seeing
on
it, but they have like a 20-page bylaw that is 11.2.
Correct, you would not vote on that bylaw, the town does. You're saying,
Right,
this,
so this isn't just a section. This is to create that whole section and bylaw.
I believe
And
so.
we don't
Yes.
have the
Mhm.
language here now to see if we want it on there. And I don't like that.
Correct.
That can wait till a special town meeting, I would think, in the fall. We do have a moratorium already until December. So we could wait till a special town meeting to address that, I would think.
Yeah.
I see two concerns. One is we have entered into a host community agreement with someone based on revising that for the 3% because they were going to be able to produce and distribute to recreational facilities. They won't get that, we won't get that 3% in that host community agreement because it was based on wholesale sales to recreational, not just medicinal.
There's wholesale, period.
They
I think
haven't gotten
Article-
the
Article
state
36 would cover that.
application yet, but they submitted the application based on the host community agreement revision we made.
I think Article 36 would create the bylaw as well, a zoning.
So 34 and 36 are,
Right, but it also, the minute you do that, it wipes out the moratorium completely. The moratorium's written as until such law is written, all of a sudden this is, so the first recreational marijuana bylaw that goes in wipes out the original moratorium. That's why I think they had the other 3 temporary moratoriums they wanted to add in for specific areas that they weren't sure they could regulate at this time comfortably. So there's a combination of, there's like 3 sets of bylaws that all are dependent on the vote of each to determine if the next step has to be taken. That's why they kind of show up in the warrant the way they do. The first 3 that were there that we struck because of the wording determine whether this one needs to go in. Because there may not be any prohibition. They believe they felt comfortable, they had done enough legwork on this one. I had been at like 3 of the last 4 planning board meetings as they were discussing this, so I'm a little familiar with it. I don't want to, because it's changed a little bit, because they were still working through drafts, so I don't want to say I know what the final is.
We're not fine.
And then based on how that goes, they also have then 3 more temporary moratoriums they want to institute later. It all depends on which ones get approved or don't get approved as to whether they'll just table or strike the next one that's not applicable, depending on how the town's voting. Yes,
Is
Claire?
this like a placeholder, so that if those 3 get voted like they did at the ballot, then they will go under this heading? So
That's
this is like a
my
placeholder
understanding.
for that heading in case the other 3
No.
are voted yes.
if 13, 14, and 15 fail, they'd be seeking a vote on 35 and 36. If they pass,
34 and 35?
No, he's speaking of the
35 and
next 2.
36.
35 and
36 is a citizen's petition, correct?
But 36 is not. 36 is to see if the town will
Oh,
vote
okay, sorry.
for the to place a temporary moratorium on retail delivery. So this is placing a moratorium in place of basically what's being asked to be banned in 13, 14, and 15.
Correct.
So if it fails, they're gonna be seeking a moratorium to establish new zoning.
To give them time to create the laws to permit those things.
There's another gap here that.
So
in case-
those I understand, it's 34, I still don't like. I don't like it not being written, I don't like seeing none of the language, and I don't see a need to have it here, it could be on a fall. I don't see any repercussions for it not being here, it doesn't hold up.
I don't see any
Facility.
repercussions for putting it there.
We're approving something we don't know what it is. We don't get to read the bylaw, and we're gonna put it on without even reading it? I mean, that's, we have no idea what's coming with it.
Well, we just approved a budget without knowing finance committee's last decision.
Yeah, but we can see the budget where it adds up to. And we know it's in that budget. We all have that.
You know where it was, but you don't know where it will be. They can cut that up at the
Where-
next meeting and
where-
you're looking at different numbers, is all I'm suggesting.
Where this was, we didn't like it when it came in here. You know, where that was, we said no when it came in, we didn't like it. And we haven't seen any changes to it yet.
Well,
We
no.
did see the first draft, they've floated that around to us, and we had a lot of objections to it, I thought. And I haven't seen any second draft. Is it, I mean, are they rushing to put it on the warrant, and if so, why? There's not a rush on that. They have till December to clean that up.
Part of the why is there is a little bit of pressure from the community. They want a regulation in place. Because some people actually want to act on it as a business entrepreneur and say, the longer you wait, the harder it is for us to make our steps and actually be in a competitive market.
So that's where Article 4.
I'm just suggesting these are, I don't know anybody specifically, I'm guessing
So this is where citizens petition Article 40 comes in. Because.
that's specific to the host agreement thing.
No.
Yeah, it's
This is-
specific to one site, only one site
Well,
applies.
At this time.
Only one
right,
site
but
can
it's-
legally
but-
apply.
But it is a zoning bylaw. Basically is in, I wanna say gonna be probably conflicting to whatever's submitted under Article 34. Because Article 34 and Article 40 are basically creating laws under this for the same thing. Two very different laws.
Here, let's clarify just to make sure we understand why there might not be the conflict you believe applies. At least as I read, Article 40 citizens petition is prior to the date of adoption hereof, the owner and/or operator of said marijuana establishment has applied for and received a provisional certificate of registration for a marijuana dispensary, which pretty much means you need to have a host community agreement for the state to give you that certificate. And you need to do it before June 19th. Because that's the date this is gonna get voted on to go into place. We only have one company that has come before the Board of Selectmen for a host community agreement that has actually had it executed and received a certificate provisional certificate from the registration of
There's
marijuana
nothing-
dispensary.
Right, but there's nothing on here that says that that they have to have the provisional certificate before the vote's taken.
Yeah,
These-
it's,
but
did
before.
you see that first clause, prior to the date of adoption hereof? The owner must have that certificate. So on June 19th, if we vote on it, anything after that, this won't apply to. And that's why it doesn't really conflict with the other one. Or if it does, it can be easily understood as why it is specific to one entity and why the request was made, because efforts and actions to move towards this, and coordination and negotiation with town was leading towards this well before a bylaw was presented to the town. Understanding a moratorium was in place, it was more of a, not legally, are we gonna be in trouble if we change it on them? But it's just like,
The only thing is, by acting on this, as soon as it's adopted, you remove the moratorium.
that's why you need 34. And this is a citizen's petition, so it's there. My understanding, it had the 10 signatures or whatever is required for, but I didn't ask.
10 now, yes.
Yeah, they were certified.
Okay,
Yep.
that's all. So yeah, that's going up, and because that's going up, if you don't have Article 34, the other potential temporary moratoriums are requesting, or even Article 13, 14, and 15, you open yourself up. Because the citizen actually kind of forced the, I just think that's how it ties together.
Yeah, it would just be nice if we had the wording here so that you could actually sit there and go, yes, this works, rather than, oh, well, this zoning law has a 500-foot buffer, but the planning board wants a 200, or wants a 200-foot buffer, a 1,000-foot buffer, or setback requirements in the industrial zone.
I thought we were gonna have it.
I hope so too.
So,
I can make a suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
The select board could always table any of these articles at town meeting. So if you left the articles on and come closer to town meeting time, which is in a month from now, you still don't have anything, or maybe you've had a chance to see the draft, or you don't like it, or whatever, you could always table it on town meeting floor.
Can you table a citizen's petition?
No, citizens
Okay.
petition.
the moderator
can't be
might, based
removed.
on whatever rules the moderator has, but I don't think we can,
A citizen's petition can't be removed.
I didn't say remove. She
Oh.
asked about table.
Table.
I don't know enough about what gives the moderator the right to table
I believe-
something,
I
so that's
believe-
the only reason I said that.
believe, and anyone makes a motion on the floor and it's seconded, the moderator must act on it. So if somebody made a motion to table that, and it was seconded, the moderator would need to bring that to a vote. And if the town body voted to table it, it would be tabled.
I believe so.
We can,
Right.
but the town body certainly can if they
I
want.
gotcha. We can bring it to vote to have it tabled.
We could say, make a motion to table it as a citizen, like anybody else could.
Okay,
But I don't think we have the right to just table anything.
that makes sense, thank you.
Article?
Huh?
You don't vote on the floor for tabling.
Yes.
Yes, you do.
The
Yes.
selectmen usually just say, we decided to table this article.
Yeah, we make a motion.
If it's our article, we can table it. But if it's someone else's petition, we can't. A citizen petition, once it's
A citizen
certified.
petition you can.
Right, that's
What
where our
about
ti-
this 34?
Town meeting approves all votes that night, not the selectmen. That's
So-
town meeting. So the public body votes that
Yeah,
night.
but I'm.
Yeah, we're
thinking
talking
of
about the
other
citizens petition.
Articles that have been up there and they've said they tabled it, and I don't ever remember them voting on tabling.
We could table our own articles, yes.
But I'm saying this 34,
We could table
Yeah.
that, yes.
on that night on the floor, if you
Yes.
don't get what the planning board is putting in there,
Yes, we
if
could
you don't
table it.
like it, you table it.
Right.
Mary Jane?
Tell me who the moderator will be this year? And
It's
will it
gonna
all-
be-
For all the articles or for some?
It's gonna be a different, there's gonna be, I believe, it's gonna start with the elected moderator, Paul Cranston, but there will be certain articles where he will recuse himself for potential client relationship and conflict of interest concerns. And we have the opportunity, I believe we have 1 to 2 people that will be present that are willing to step in as the fill-in moderator.
No, they get elected on town meeting floor.
I didn't get to that step.
Oh.
I just said we have 2 people that are willing or able to be present to do that. And then the next step is, yes, the options get presented, and then the town votes on which one becomes the fill-in or replacement moderator during that period of time. So it won't be assigned by us, it will actually be voted by the town on town floor.
Will that be secret ballot, or will it be hands, or?
That is just like everything else, it's hands unless someone calls for a request for a secret ballot vote, and then you go through that vote to have it, and then so it could become secret ballot if someone requests. I know that they know there's a number of things here that they're concerned about residents possibly wanting secret ballot, so I think they're preparing for additional secret ballot votes that may come up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a question. If you people are so, it sounds confusing, is there a cutoff time at the night of the meeting where you say, we're gonna stop and have the meeting, to finish the meeting at another night?
Mhm.
There is a time, you can
Yeah,
do
you
that?
can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
you
haven't
can-
set a
No,
time,
I'm
we
just
have,
saying, say, it gets to be 10, 11 o'clock or whatever, you can
Yeah,
stop the meeting.
I think
say
the
whatever.
public body can make a motion to,
the moderator actually can make the decision.
I'm sure we'll breeze
I
through
just
this
read
as
it
quickly as
today,
we
it
are
just
tonight.
came up.
Well, I don't know.
The moderator
No, we
can
won't. This is gonna be a
call the
long
meeting and set a date, and I believe he actually has, what is it, within 7 days?
Okay.
Otherwise, it's gotta go through a reposting or something, so he can
You can stop-
continue it or postpone it for emergency reasons, other things like that, based on, but you do have to set a date, like, within a week or so of continuing it.
Thank you.
Shelley, how late do you remember a meeting going?
How late?
How late?
Was the latest meeting you remember, a town meeting, how late did that go?
At least midnight.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
11:30.
The problem is everyone gets up
12
and leaves
o'clock.
and.
then you lose your quorum.
At least midnight.
Crazy.
yeah.
I
I
thought
can remember
the
one.
first solar bylaws, I thought, ran pretty late.
All right, I'll kick this forward. I make a motion to accept Article 34 as written for now.
Second.
Call for vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to accept both Articles 35 and 36 as written.
Those are the two temporary
Temporary
moratoriums.
moratorium, so that's if the articles earlier that we're gonna put back on get shot down, then we need to put a moratorium on until they can create bylaws.
Gotcha.
I will second.
And just to be clear, those are for delivery within the town of Barre and on-site consumption social.
And retail.
Nope.
Yeah, retail was put in with the other one. I thought they were together. Thought they
I
bumped
think
the
that's
two.
the description, marijuana retailer delivery, marijuana retailer social consumption. It's not,
retail-
not storefront.
Here's retailer, comma, social consumption establishments.
Why would they put marijuana retailer in the next one as well then? If you look at Articles 13, 14, 15, you'll
Retailer-
see they
retail
use the
delivery.
same
Okay, yeah, they see
type
the
of
same
language. They didn't include storefront as one of the temporary moratoriums they would do after the fact.
Well, that might be, they might have actually addressed that in the zoning bylaw as proposed.
That is in Article 34, so I think they're hoping that goes through
Right,
without a
30
hitch, and then they won't need a moratorium. on it.
35 and 36 were actually stricken from the CMR, or were actually like, tabled under the CMR to be released later, so there's no approval under the state right now anyway on those two.
So,
Motion and
got a second on that?
We did.
Yep.
I believe.
Okay, call for a vote?
All right,
Aye.
Mhm.
Article 37, amend the code of the town of Barre, zoning, chapter 140 by amending 140-10.1 solar energy facility special permit site plan review. I believe this is generally to create some bylaws that allow special permits for certain R80 residents for ground arrays. Details in the, will come from the planning board.
do we not have any language for that?
I don't know, I was at the last planning board meeting and I got a draft solar bylaw and I got a draft marijuana bylaw when I was there.
It's the same boat as 34.
I don't know if they made good progress that night on solar, it wasn't as thick of a package.
All right, same thing, we can always table it. I'll make a motion to approve Article 37 as written.
Second.
Call for vote?
Aye.
Aye. Article 38, cemetery. This is a request to have a private cemetery placed on the Hardy Farm Trust located at 33 Hardy Road in Barre, Mass. This was submitted by the Board of Health on behalf of the Hardy family, is that correct? Or is this a,
It was I think, yeah, through the Board of Health, this came in. I think the actual article wording came in from an engineer or something.
so it's just a citizen's request? Is
Yeah,
how
it
we
wasn't a
should
citizen's
pursue?
petition, it was a request. They've met all the
Right.
requirements to do this.
Okay. I'm not necessarily opposed about it, but we have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we include Article, what is it, 38 on the warrant.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call for vote.
Aye.
Never seen that done before.
Personal cemetery?
Yeah, I've never seen,
They did one in Hubbardston a few years
yeah,
ago.
yeah, but I've never seen
Back
it
in the
done
day,
in
they just
Barry.
used to bury them and say, I did it. I'm talking a couple hundred years ago, maybe 50 years ago, maybe not
You've
even.
never seen the likes of what John Hardy did either.
No, good point. Article 39, this is the citizens petition to amend the Code of Barre, Chapter 80, Peace and Good Order. By amending Chapter 80-4, ball playing, throwing stones, by deleting the sentence and replacing with no person shall play ball or throw stones or other missile-like objects in or upon any
Do
public
we have to
street.
discuss these citizens petitions? They're automatically on.
They're automatically on.
Right.
No.
So why don't we
Well, we
move
can
forward?
still make the vote. It's almost like a recommendation at this point. It's your call. We have a
I
motion?
don't think we have any right to make a motion on it, that's what I'm saying. I don't think we have the right to move on this, it's on. So I think it would be inappropriate for us to take a vote on that. It pretends
Okay.
like we have some sort of say, we do not.
Do you agree or disagree, Charlie?
Yeah, that's fine. Either way is fine. But I think we're pretty well obligated to do it anyway.
Yeah, I think it's on.
Well,
I think
we're
it's
gonna be
on.
putting it on. Do you have something else you'd like to say, Mary?
I just wanted to know yes or no it's gonna be on, yes or no it's gonna be on.
It was a citizen's petition.
We're gonna put it on. We're not
We
gonna
can't
fight the
take it off.
citizens
We can't take it
petition.
off, is my point. We
So
have
it
no
will be
right to
on.
take it
Thank
off.
you, Mary.
Once the signatures are done, the 10, it's on.
Okay.
So Article 41.
Article 39. Article 40 is also citizens petition. This is the one that's more specific to, property on Vernon Street and the owners thereof. Do we have any questions on that before we move on? Okay. Article 41, amend the code of Town of Barre. See if the town will vote to amend the code of the Town of Barre, Chapter 18, Boards, Committees, Commissions, Article 1, Finance Committee, Section 18-2. Appointment of members, term of office, records by adding
Records.
Okay, records by adding the following sentence at the end. All appointments to the Finance Committee, new appointments, reappointments, and persons filling vacancies to the finance shall not be deemed qualified until they have been interviewed by the Board of Selectmen and confirmed by a majority vote of the Selectmen.
Or take any action relative to.
Oh, yes.
Well, certainly, I have a motion to place it on the warrant.
Is that a motion to place it on?
To place Article 41.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
I'm gonna make
Go
my
ahead,
point
Claire.
again.
Understood.
This is conflict of interest between the selectmen and the finance committee.
How?
The selectmen are one, financial type board, and the finance committee is another one. And this is how I've been taught through the finance committee. It's like you need a neutral. You need a neutral person to appoint finance committee members, not the selectmen.
Right, we have that. the moderator.
Otherwise, you could load it.
We have that, the moderator makes the appointments.
Yeah, but this is changing it.
No, that's, means we have to confirm the appointments, that's all. We can't make any, we can suggest all we want. It doesn't change who the moderator appoints.
That's not what
And
it's
it's,
saying here.
and there is no conflict unless there's financial benefit to us or we're benefiting a family member through this.
Listen.
I've called the state conflict of interest,
Just
the ethics
listen
over
a
it.
minute, Greg.
Well, you're using the
I'm
wrong
not
term.
Please,
saying
please, she was
that
given the
you-
table.
You men would do
The
it on
floor.
the board, but it can be done. I have seen things happen. You can set up who you want on that finance committee as your little puppet. And then you've got problems. It has to remain neutral, whoever appoints them. It has to be a neutral person, and the moderator, Paul might have,
He's not
some.
neutral.
But it has to be a neutral person.
I completely disagree, for several reasons. What I'm going by and guiding by is the Selectmen's Handbook we get from the state, which discusses finance committee appointments, and it even allows that we could appoint them ourselves completely, which is not what we've chosen or ever chosen to do in town. They could be appointed by the administrator or a designee, they could be voted in at town ballot. There's a plethora of ways to appoint them, all of them are legal. The board is designed because the selectmen are obviously elected, intended to be political figures and make decisions for political purposes, and the people want in town express their wishes through the board and have things done. Not necessarily elected for our financial backgrounds or financial abilities. So it's important to make sure the finance committee can address those issues, that those people fill in where our shortcomings are.
Do you have a
And-
problem with how
and-
it's been going on
and-
for the last 20 or 30 years?
Some of it, yes. And as we've said,
Because I can see
because,
now.
because I think Mr. Cranston does have biases when he appoints people. It just gives us a check and balance against that, that's all it does. And was very careful to, after your concerns last meeting, to make a point to call ethics and make sure that there is nothing wrong with this. And, unless there is a financial gain for us, or we're trying to put a family member in, that's where we cross ethical things. Just as we talked about before, the Board of Health being the license holder and the authority over that license. Ethics said there is no conflict because there's no gain for them. They're just a committee overseeing a town facility. It's not overseeing their own facility. So there is no conflict that exists and there's nothing wrong with it.
Well, I can see it then.
Well,
From a certain selectman could.
All right. First,
Not that I'm saying anything about you guys, just the idea of it.
understood. Go ahead, Charlie.
Okay, I think I vote put it on at the request of a colleague on the board. I'm not, by placing it on, we're not advocating passage or defeat of this, it's just placing it on. And the debate is for the town to take under. I personally have some misgivings about it, but I think it warrants discussion by the town. And I think I have always felt very, very strongly about this, that a colleague on the board should be able to place things on the warrant if they see fit. It does not reflect whether it's going to pass or succeed or fail on the town meeting floor.
Really don't know.
That's the point.
No idea how they'll take it.
Right, it might not, but place to argue it is on town meeting floor.
But at the finance committee meeting, Attorney Baird said that he felt it was a slap in the face to the people on the committee. Doesn't that bear anything here?
I don't believe you should take it as a slap in the face from this board. I do believe you need to pay attention to what Charlie just said. This board doesn't speak for the town, so we do believe it's important to incorporate the town's opinions on something. One individual on this board requested to have this put on, believes there's legitimate reasons to do so. Because of that, I am generally in agreement with Charlie that you let the town discuss and vote this. Because, one, we gotta work together, we support it. Two, we've gotta work with you. It shouldn't be about the two boards, it should be about what does the town want. If we don't give it to the town, then it's about the two boards and the individuals on the boards. Second, for me, I do see what Clara's brought up. I do see the concern using the word conflict. I don't believe it falls under the state regulations of conflict of interest, because conflict, according to the state, only matters if there's financial implications. But I don't think that's a fair view of conflict of interest. I don't think it's accurate or accurate to the way it can manipulate certain things from occurring. So I do see some concerns with that. Again, the concerns aren't based on the individuals that I currently work with. It's a concern based on someone I don't know that may come in the future and try to stack a finance committee via this new clause from the select board. I'm not suggesting that that is how it would be used, nor am I saying the moderator couldn't be doing the exact same thing that your concern of the select board would, is choosing finance committee members based on something other than what's best for the committee, therefore for the town. That's the concern, really, is all this is. It doesn't matter whether it's the moderator doing it alone or the moderator doing it based on Board of Selectmen review of the applicant. It's still, the concept is, how do we make sure we get what's best for the town? This is more about looking at it as, what can we do to do what's best for the town? I do think some of the viewpoints are also flawed, because a lot of people still miss the point of good people doing their best and volunteering a lot of time and effort to try to help the town, and not looking at that effort and the positives of that versus the thought in your mind is, whether it's the select board or any committee or board, because nobody that's elected in this town or even appointed to a committee is making any money on it. They're doing it because they're trying to do what's right, as I see it. So you gotta look at that, and sometimes you don't always agree with someone, but you gotta understand they're putting in their best effort. So I think some of this comes from different perceptions of what's going on, but I think it's up to the town to vote. So I don't want the finance committee to take the board's vote, whether it's positive or not, to put this on the warrant as the Board of Selectmen, as the Board of Selectmen's view of the finance committee. We're reviewing a policy that we believe has similarly concerning possibilities, just as you're presenting, that the Board of Selectmen could do. And the thought was, the moderator's 1, the Board of Selectmen's 3. Are you more likely to have 3 people all colluding to one idea, or one person choosing one idea? And so that could be part of the motivation of why he thinks having the Board of Selectmen involved in the final appointment of someone to the finance committee adds more heads to it, and therefore makes it harder for it to be a slide it on through. And the Board of Selectmen has to do it in a public meeting. We have to state, these are the applicants, this is what we think, we discuss, and we vote. A moderator just does it. So there are concerns about what is more open to the public and what might be considered a more open policy. So I'm just presenting, there's more to it than, do we like the members of this committee, or do we think they're good enough to do the job? That's not what this is about,
Both of these articles.
as from my understanding.
Both of these articles are results of people asking me to put something in about this. This comes from the voting public, from some people. I'm sure we all hear different things about different topics from different people. We do get emails, and we do get questioned by people and concerns and requests for things. And these are driven, both of these, by multiple people having input as to what they are not happy with and want to see a change for, and it's an attempt to do that change. And for the appointments, as I said before, and Matt touched on, this is the only committee that's appointed by a single person in the entire town. most of them go to public vote. And if those vacancies are empty, they can be filled by this board, which is still a collective of, 3 to make a public decision and when they appoint somebody to the committee. This is the only committee in this town that's the sole discretion of one individual. And if you can be concerned, as Matt said, that the board may have some bias in the future, or now, or whenever, that's 3 people that would have to have a similar bias as opposed to, as you said, 1. It's just a check and balance to how the appointment is done, and it addresses public concerns, as I've always said, I will do to the best of my ability. I've said before, I plan to do 1 term here and try to help out and make changes people have asked for. This should not benefit me in the future at all. I don't plan to be here any more than my 3 years.
How many people are standing in line for finance committee?
I understand, but
And anybody that questions how the finance committee is appointed, did they come up to try to get onto the committee? Because you have to drag people out of the woodwork. People don't show up.
I understand that concern as well.
And if they've got their concerns, then let them step forward and fill these slots. We were running with, what was it, one time we only had 4.
I didn't think you had a quorum at one
We
point.
didn't even have a quorum at one time.
It may sound facetious, but it's not. I look forward to this debate in the town floor to see what the people think about it when they start discussing it. And
Because-
I'm gonna present it, and the discussion will go,
Well,
and the vote will take place.
My feeling will come out and I will say to
Absolutely.
them.
I would
"Stand
expect
up
it to. I
and
would
come forward."
I would expect it to come up and you to present against it if you don't like it. And then if people do feel strongly for it, they can argue on their behalf. And if they don't, then they won't, and it'll go the wayside. But that's the
then
idea of putting
ones
it
that are
out there.
complaining come forward and serve on the board.
You can always tell people, put up or shut up. And if people have asked for it, I've put it here. If they want to have their conversations and get their group of people together to support it, they will. And if they don't, then it won't happen. I can't make the people vote anyway. I don't want to make the people vote anyway. I'm trying to put forward what's been asked of me to be put forward. And I will own it. I wrote it, and I think it's what I was asked to do, and that's where it sits. And what happens in town floor happens, and hopefully people who said they want it will come argue for it. And we just gotta see. I'm interested to see where the debate goes. It's gonna be late at night, it's gonna be short-tempered, I'm sure, it's gonna be very interesting.
It's gonna be a waste of time.
Maybe,
Do we,
it may well be,
okay.
it may not.
Call for a vote.
I,
Article 42, amend the the code of Barre. To have the town vote to amend chapter 520 of the town of Barre code, an act providing for recall and removal elections in the town of Barre as follows.
and I'm gonna.
I would just like to clarify something that was brought up at the finance committee meeting when we reviewed this. This is, apparently early in the process to present to town for that type of vote. Because I believe this is a state statute we asked the state to write. And then we bring it back to the town and the town approves it and then incorporates it. So this is actually a state written legislature, not a town
It's
bylaw.
a state act, yeah. So it resolves and acts in the
So
laws.
section 4 and section 5 is the state act,
Is the state act, which
which you're requesting to amend.
which the state act, well, we adopted it to the town code. We adopted the state act into our town code.
Well, the state act was created specifically for Barre,
Right,
because we asked them to.
correct. And
And then we had to bring it to town vote for them to then accept it into our town code.
I think, I'm understanding it the other way, that we asked to make the change here, and then we'd send it to the state and they'd have to approve it. And then once it approved, maybe we have to do it again, but I think
Okay.
this is the attempt to make something that the town is willing to send to the state. I understand any of these have to go to the state, especially this being the Resolve and Act, will have to go before the state for a vote for them to approve that modification before it can take effect. I'm not convinced that that's done first. I believe this is done first to see what the body wants to do with it. And if the body says they want to make that change, we then resubmit it to the state and ask them to approve the amendment to that act.
And then it's gotta come back to us and actually approve what the state approves.
I think adopt it.
It's almost like 3 steps. It
Yes,
starts here,
and
it goes there, and then comes back here
We
for
want to
final
amend the
approval
code,
again.
and the state's got to approve it and make that act, and then we can adopt that act, adopt the modification to that act. So I believe it is, it's like a ping pong game. But
Okay, so
believe
I would
this
only
is where it
suggest the
starts.
first of the wording here, shall the town vote to amend chapter 520, might need to be changed to, shall the town vote to request the state to take the first action. I don't know the right words, but, huh?
Petition the legislature.
Petition the legislature to amend chapter 520. And then they'll go through their review and process, and they'll cut it up however they wanna
Yeah.
cut it up.
Sounds
send it
like-
back.
Sounds like a proper language change.
You missed a good meeting.
I got one other thing I just wanna add, and then the other thing that was brought up is, if we're gonna do that, we probably should look at the bigger picture and to include the things you were talking about with the town clerk and the election timelines. That should all be done in one for this, which means we're not really prepared to present this to the town because we don't have all of that together.
Conversely, I would say this is a good dip your toe in the water at trying to make a very small change. The change we're talking about, as far as the other portion we're talking about, is the concurrent elections. Right now, the way our town bylaws set up the dates in the state act has the dates, they conflict, so we cannot do a concurrent election. And to adopt that's gonna require either modifying this and/or our town bylaws or election bylaws, which are separate from this. So it's getting into multiple acts and multiple bylaws. I still want to try to put that through, see how it works, find out the process. If it doesn't work and gets bumped, we'll find out why, and we're going to at least learn from this. If the town shoots it down, then it doesn't go anywhere. If the town says they'd like to go ahead and petition the state, then we petition the state and we see how the process unfolds for us. Because when we get into the other changes, it's going to be very cumbersome. We're not going to be looking at a page like this. We're going to be looking at about 6 pages of documents, legally written and very confusing and difficult to explain to the body.
No, it's just
To
a
tie them in.
2-page thing.
Oh, not to do what we need to do, it's not, because that's not the election bylaws.
Okay.
You need to modify both. So,
Well, I'd just like to say, because you two were at the meeting, that we did have the town clerk come in and say, if we're going to do it, we might as well do it the right way. And town council also said, do it right, rewrite it and bring it up at the fall town meeting. He said, there's 2 people that know what they're talking about that said to table it, bring it up in the fall, and to fix it right.
That is how
That's
it's brought
exactly
up.
what they both said.
and we had this discussion in the fall, and didn't have any other willingness to discuss it during the year, and we haven't had any input from council on it. Because this board would never give approval to have council work on this, when I'd asked about it before, that we submitted to council. So this is where it is, and I've asked Ellen for her time on it, and she was too busy at the time, because we were in the elections and things, to put time into it yet. So I wanted to put this portion through, I've been asked to put this portion through, and that's why I placed it here. And,
You do realize the first time I saw this was Wednesday at the meeting you didn't show up to.
we discussed,
The first time I saw this, I've
This,
heard you
right,
talk
right,
about it.
right, we've
I've not
also-
read it yet.
right, and I had placed similar things on the fall special town meeting, which we said we would table.
And we reviewed it, and we
And we-
identified some issues that didn't
And
work.
we said we'll work on it, and it never did. So
We're still
I-
working
so-
on
so
it.
I
We're not
brought
trying
it
to say
through.
no.
And I-
This was brought to us up
Okay,
4 days ago by town council and town clerk saying, this isn't a bylaw, this is a special act. And so the effort is more cumbersome. I didn't know that until last Wednesday. I don't know if Charlie was aware of that, but it was brought to our attention last Wednesday. We weren't necessarily gonna be saying, let's not do this if it was a bylaw, because it would just be local. We wouldn't have had a problem throwing it to the town to discuss and do that.
well,
It now, with new information from the town clerk and town council talking about the effort and the coordination and the preparation involved before you present to your state legislature and request that change. They suggested doing it all at once and moving it towards the fall meeting because, as you just said, it's a much more comprehensive item.
I don't
And
think
you
it
don't
is.
want to go to the special legislature to revise a special act twice in a year because you just wanted to get one item done and then you'll do the next time.
We don't know necessarily if we're gonna try to rewrite the act or rewrite the bylaws for election, which sound more likely. Or some combination of referring between the two.
Ellen wanted the act
And
changed.
You
that's,
have to do this
and it's,
to do that. What you just asked about the not being allowed to run if you were voted out.
we need to ask the legislature to modify the act so we can adopt it, and then we adopt it as our bylaw. The election recall, the bylaw for the recalls is the adoption of the act.
Yeah.
That's what that is, and we're asking to modify that. I don't see the need to tie the two together, they're two different issues. And as I said, the things that need to be done are gonna be cumbersome, and they're not gonna happen by the fall meeting, I don't think. And quite frankly, no one's asking me, other than Ellen, to try to incorporate that for her.
I think she was the first one or maybe the only one to realize it. And so she started talking to you about
To
that.
realize that it's a resolver act,
No, the election
the concurrencies.
concurrency question. I
Yes.
thought that's what you just said. She's the only one asking you to address.
Right,
Okay.
because the expense is literally, $12,000 to $18,000, depending what goes on to have an election. And having two, you could have one, would certainly save money for the town and be smart.
Yeah, she did state she's been wanting to change this since like 2009 or
Right. And it,
something. She's been looking at this since then, but just hasn't been able to.
and it
Get
needs
it
to be
accomplished.
I like
discussed.
to say to the two selectmen that were at the meeting, town clerk said this, town council said this, there shouldn't be any discussion on it.
Why?
The town clerk said that this is the way it should be done, town council said it, the way that it should be done. You get to the fall, I don't know why you're discussing it. It should be tabled.
Because we have a member of the board that believes it's worth discussing. That's about all if I'm on your board, I think you would appreciate it if I let you talk about something that I might personally think isn't worth discussing.
Right, and I think if you voted on it, I would hope that the two of you would go with town council and town clerk, and it could be ended right here.
I understand.
The point Ellen was trying to make to us at that meeting, that it was too bad you weren't here, Greg, because it was really informative. I learned things from listening to Ellen. And this hasn't been changed since 1979. And there's a lot of things in there that need to be changed, and Jim Baird agreed. And he said you don't go to the legislature with one thing and then come back with some others. He said it makes you kind of look like a fool,
No, it makes
Why
it look,
didn't you bring them all at once?
it makes it look like the new board is reevaluating things
And it would
annually.
make it would look better for you to do everything
Well,
and analyze, pick
I've-
these things.
I've sat here for a year and I've had people ask me to do this. I tried to bring it out in the fall. I'm trying to bring it up again as the people that voted me into office have asked me to do. Since then, other people want to pile more changes on. They haven't participated, they haven't brought these things forward with any meaningful data or attempts to help modify this. So I have to stay with the thing that the people have asked me to do and that I have worked on and brought forward. And if the whole law is cumbersome and Mr. Beard and Ellen think so, then the two of them should be working on rewriting that and bringing that to us. Not waiting till I want to change one thing and saying, that's nice, now let's pile the pork on. I don't like piling pork on.
Talking about it for a while.
Well,
I didn't realize
just
it was
as
a special
happens all the time
legislation until that
with our
was-
lovely government, someone tries to pass an article and everybody says, I'll vote for it if we add this and I'll add this. and it becomes anything but what it started as. This is the focus of what people asked me to put in, that's what I put forward. If the town says no to it, then it's a moot point anyways, we don't need to look into it any further. Which is a very real, once again, I don't know because 15 or 20 people tell me they want to see it. There could be 300 people in the town floor that say, absolutely not, and it's done. Then we don't have to go through everything cumbersome and include this when the town doesn't want it included. The other issues, if the town council wants it and the town clerk want it, that's not citizens looking to make some change. That's the people functioning in our town offices that see a need for a change.
That's because the town people don't realize that these things, these dates aren't coinciding.
I understand that.
It needs to be brought
But
out.
the thing they have out, right, and if they realize they're not coinciding, they should have brought something forward and worked on it.
Well, I think the general public wouldn't know what the election laws state. And Ellen, as the department head who oversees all of this stuff, is asking for us to correct this because it's incorrect. She says that what our act says and what the state's election laws are conflicting. We're not even legally doing things because they're conflicting. So she's been working with Jim Baird since you brought this forward, trying to figure out how to get all the corrections made. And I mean, we can't.
Specifically, we've adopted an act which lays out timelines for the election. And we have town bylaws that conflict with that act we've adopted.
Actually, the state voting laws. That's what she's
The
referring to, the
state-
state voting laws.
The state voting laws which govern us, yes. They conflict so the timelines cannot line up.
Right, so our
Actually,
special
it's
act.
minimum timelines. They can line up as long as we just don't try to meet the minimum. So we're not necessarily in conflict if we use the longest, as I read
I
it.
don't think so. I think there's,
Oh, more
I
than,
think
yep, you're
one of-
right.
yeah, one
There's
of
a
them
25 and 35 like window.
right, one of them gives a certain window and the other one
You're correct.
can't meet the window. That I think it's specific, the reelection
You're
needs
right.
more time than the resolve allows for. The resolve says you can do this, but to have that concurrent election, it had to be within like the 35-day timeline, and you need a 65-day, I think, in the, I haven't read that through in a year now, since I started the recall a year and a half ago, two, whatever it was, while now, two? Oh. But anyways, that's when I got into all this stuff, and I had to learn about these then,
Okay.
and how they worked. And I think the change I'm suggesting is wise and is simple, and is good practice for pushing through with the legislature and see how it's bounced back and, or not, and what kind of input they need from us to do it, or just to see what happens. And that will make it easier when we want to bring something forward again for a change. It's not like they're just gonna, oh, they already asked us once, we're not gonna do it again. If they have a problem with it, they'll tell us the problem, and then we have to come work on it and try to change it. But to try to do the whole thing at once and sail the whole ship forward, when we don't even know if the town even wants this portion, and that was my point. The town may or may not want this portion. The other portion that Ellen wants to see change is necessary for the town. That's more of a government, we need to make that change happen.
Right, so wouldn't we want to
But-
do that?
But we don't know if this section is something that, I don't want to lose the rest of it because this is in there.
This wasn't submitted by the town clerk.
No, I know, but now that
So
she's
if we
brought
wanted
this
to do it,
forward,
it was,
wouldn't we want to fix it now that she's brought it forward? We are
We do.
acknowledging there's an issue.
What I'm saying is if I put the whole thing forward,
all right. We all pretty much are now just saying the same thing over and over again. There's two items related to this that specifically are of concern to the town. One is what you've represented that you believe the town wants to vote on.
that a certain amount of people.
If you're
do this.
kicked out, you can't run the next time.
Mhm.
And the different timelines you put into that. The second is the appropriate timelines for running the elections, concurrent or not, or however it works out legally.
Which is,
Two major items, but different parallel paths, but they fall on the same act.
right,
You don't go to the state and ask them to revise the act once each year. And if we don't do it together, what's more important really is the election timelines than it is whether they get to run again. Because if they get to run again and the town votes them in, then it's interesting that they just voted them out 2.5 months prior to that. So I think what's more important, and what I think actually, don't get me wrong, from what I see with you, I think, in my opinion, by saying no, is more about not forcing the kick them out vote, but allowing them to step down and just have one vote to come back, and you can be on that ballot if you just accept a step down and have a new election. Do you follow what I mean? Rather than having 2 votes, therefore 2 elections, to have one removed and then replaced, you just say, here's the petition, if the person says I don't want it, or I hear you, but if that's the case, I'll step down and let's just have a new election. You have the new election, and then there you go. They're kicked out because someone else was voted in. I think that's a motivator to do that rather than, nope, kick me out first by a vote and then I'll run again. And what you're saying is you can't run again if you get kicked out.
That's already allowed for them to step down and rerun. That is permissible right now. But what I'm saying about combining the two is, it's important to Ellen, and the attorney agrees, that modifying the timelines is important. If this portion is not accepted by the town, it could sink the whole thing when we try to modify it later. So
Here's my
I want to float
recommendation.
that on its own as it is.
My recommendation is, once again, rather than getting too detailed and actually saying, shall the town vote to amend chapter 520, suggest, shall the town petition the legislature to amend chapter 520 for the following considerations, what you have, as well as, and then include the list of the elections things, election timelines, generically. Because then we can then take that direction from the town, work some more detail, and then go to the legislature with it. Because it'll probably take till next town meeting, I'm guessing, for them to come back
Right.
to
So
us.
instead of saying amend the
So
code.
we're still gonna be a year out to vote on what the
Strike
final.
amend the code and make that petition the legislature to amend chapter 520. And to go along
To
with what,
consider the following
and
things.
to go along with what you said, we add the word, they cannot run in a concurrent election. That doesn't mean they can't step down and run in the only election to fill the vacancy, because it's not a concurrent. And any officer who is recalled from office by vote shall be
In
exempt
other
for
words, they
5
didn't
years.
step down, they
And that
forced
wa-
a vote.
And that was the intent, that people were frustrated, very frustrated, not that a recall went down, but by not stepping down, it forced a second vote. When you have, 500 people has come up with a signature,
So do you
or
think we could
600.
reword that
I think we could reword that.
to also incorporate the town clerk's needs?
I think
So then we can draft what goes to the legislation, but that
I-
draft doesn't have to be here, because we're not saying we're changing
No,
the
but-
code word for word.
I don't think, I think if we reword it now, if we reword this now to say petition the state, it doesn't say when. This just tells us whether or not the people want us to include this in the petition when we write the rest of it, which is my concern. I don't want to dump it in with everything else and have it fail, and have everything fail because this is part of it. But if the town says they want it as part of it, then we float it as part of it when it goes to the state. So we can still have the article.
But what
and
I'm
with-
just
and with-
suggesting is you add just one, like, say that's part A, and you add part B that says, and to resolve changes in election law that throw off the timelines between this act and current legislation. So in
Right.
other words, that's it, nothing major, nothing complicated, it's
And
just
that would fit all the bills.
clean
That-
up the
that
conflicts
would
in
say-
old laws and new laws.
That would say if you step down, you may run for the election and it'll be one election. If you don't step down, then we can have a concurrent and you may not run. That's what that would do, and make it all into one. But then we have to find out how to recommend to change that, which is
Well,
the difficult part.
again,
That's why
well,
it's not done.
There's a little bit here, I think that, from my understanding is, I don't believe the town necessarily wrote every word of section 1 through whatever here and went to the state and said, take it.
No,
love
was
it.
Picked up from somewhere.
They probably did a pretty good job of it, but they're also working with a little back and forth before they submit it, saying, all right, what do I have to include here? What laws apply? How would we word this to make sure we're current with current election laws, so we're not looking at a conflict in the future? And so we would be working a little bit with state legislators, whether it's currently Ann Goby or the representatives, Berthium, getting some information back from them, developing something up, and then we would present to the legislature. But we don't need to present that whole document on the warrant. We just have to explain the major topics we want to discuss and revise, because it's coming back to the town to vote to accept. If we don't vote to accept it, no big deal. We still got whatever's there is there, my understanding. So I think this is more just a request to address,
Right.
look at revising this for this consideration and to consider aligning election laws current and from 1979.
We could rewrite it to say Article 42, petition the state legislature. Shall the town vote to petition the legislature to amend Chapter 520, the Resolve Act, or Chapter 519 and 520 we're after, for recall elections by adding, as I said, add the word not, which will strictly make it, they're not eligible for concurrent election. And to say if they are removed from office, we would add in here by a ballot vote. Then they're exempt from 5 years, because that means they've pushed the town through for the vote and spent the money.
And I'm
That-
okay
that-
if we
that-
take a
that-
little time and make sure we get the wording right.
Once we do that, now if they step down, they can go ahead and run in the election. They step down, the office is vacant, we have an election, they may run for that election. And that was a big concern, spending money twice on votes. So they can run back for their replacement then, they just can't if it's concurrent, because they've pushed it and then they're gonna push, if they're pushing up to that, then they can't. If they step down with just having a straight vote, then they can run and be straightforward. And that allows us to make the exclusion of 5 years only if you push it to a ballot.
Yeah, it's primarily about
And then we
If
can
you're-
add,
forcing an additional vote in the cost of the town, and it proves out that they don't want you in office, then you're not allowed to come back and play with us for a little while.
and then we can add to that.
I just think what I'd
Also-
rather, very similar to like with the planning board and all that, we'll vote the article in, but we need to work on the wording. So we're gonna have to clear up the wording before we print it and publish it, which, June 4th? When did you want that wording finalized by?
Tonight.
It's not happening tonight because you don't have it with the other ones. You don't
Okay.
have, I'm just curious, timeline-wise now, we go to the 19th, we have to have 7-day notice for annual town meeting, but we wanted to give 14 by posting it. So that puts us on June 5th. Time to
mean-
print, so you're talking like next Monday?
You guys
The
can
late-
vote.
I'm asking.
You guys can vote to
Can't
do
be
whatever
next
you
Monday.
want, but you three have sat up
Tuesday.
here and said you wanted it out
I mean,
more,
I'm just
longer.
saying, fitting in a meeting to make it work. I'm trying to work with you to figure out what we can work with. Because it's not just this item, it's
Well,
Well, you already
4 other
voted-
items that
You
we,
voted to take the other ones off. You removed those 3 items
Not
at
all
the
of them.
beginning.
rewriting this is easy enough, especially if it's just
well, the
seeing-
intent wasn't to keep them off. It's because he wanted them rewritten.
You voted to remove them from the
Right.
warrant.
Correct,
Remove them.
yes,
They're gone.
yes,
And,
Here we are at the bottom of the
wait,
list.
wait.
yes, correct, that's where we stand.
All right, stop. We voted to remove them, and the entire discussion was because we're gonna reopen the warrant to have properly worded ones placed in. So we weren't getting rid of them, we just didn't like the way they were worded.
Correct.
So in other words, we still need a week to get that figured out, because it didn't seem like it was worded appropriately for how it needs to be presented.
We just,
And then how it needs to be written as a bylaw after that.
We just need to pull the literal language off the ballot. Will the town vote
Well,
to?
the quotations was the same language.
Right, we have to put just that, will the town
Excuse
vote
me.
to?
Go ahead, Andrew.
I did a little bit of research here. So this is, so it's basically under MGL chapter 94G, section 3, paragraph A, subparagraph 2, subsection I. That's basically what establishes the ability for the town to vote to take this off, or to take it off. However, it does have to do it by a amendment to the code of ordinances. Or not code, I'm sorry, but to the town code. I think the zoning law is the wrong place for it though, because it requires a majority vote. Anything that amends the zoning code requires a 2/3 vote. So I do think that
Okay, I just need that link or something so I can
Yeah.
read it too, because I'm.
Yeah. So this, basically, it's
missing
not,
pieces.
you know, it's its own section of law that's not amending the zoning act. It's its own section of law that allows you to ban it, because under the zoning act, you can't necessarily prohibit something. This is allowing you to actually prohibit one specific thing. So I think that we need to just confirm the actual place in the code it's supposed to go.
You think it has to be tied to that now?
I think that it might just be a matter of saying that it will be part of the code, part of the code. Again, this is probably gonna be, a question with legal counsel. I just think that the zoning reg is probably the wrong place for it.
I was under the impression we just had to have the same vote to ask the town if they wanted to do these things. And
Right.
once they approve that they do want to ban retail, ban that, and ban that,
Right.
then we would come back at another date
That may, right.
with those codes written.
And it may not be necessary to even include what the section it goes into
Right,
and
that's what I'm
everything.
saying, I don't think we have to, we're just asking if they want to ban them. And if they
Right.
say yes, then we write the law that the language of bans it.
Right, and it does, the language does say under section 3, paragraph 7.
But that just establishes
Right.
that we have the right to do it, it's not something we have to disclose.
Exactly, but it also says, the ballot shall be prepared, asking, shall this city or town adopt the following bylaw or ordinance? So the wording is correct with the shall the town portion of it. It's just,
Does it leave the blank
Should
for
it-
you to write the bylaw?
should it include a bylaw?
Does that standard that you were referencing, shall the, is there the normal blank of where you fill in the blank?
Yeah, so adopt the following bylaw.
Blank.
Yeah, it says, quote, bylaw. So, it's where we say marijuana storefront as described in the adult use regulations.
So we gotta look at the ballot to see if we reference that as a zoning bylaw on
It
the
doesn't,
ballot.
the ballot is strictly what is worded here in quotation marks.
Okay.
It's just a matter of figuring out where in the code that would go.
So, just looking quick at the town code,
Yeah.
the moratorium
Yep.
is under zoning, under
Right.
11.1. So is that why they keep going back to
That-
zoning?
Keep
It's a
going back to
temporary,
zoning.
complete
Right.
prohibition.
Well,
But
then,
It's just got a
but
timeline.
it blocks the zoning aspect of it, so if the zoning's not there, or if it's prohibited under zoning for a year, then it's, a zoning code, but if, this is like a whole new section of law
right,
that basically is saying that you're looking to ban it, but you're not looking to pass a zoning ordinance of banning it.
well, yeah, the section that it falls under though is 40-11, which says prohibited uses in all districts. That's 11.
We have a zoning law that prohibits uses in
So,
districts.
I'm wondering if that's why
Various.
it's
Right, but you
tracking
can't-
underneath.
But you can't prohibit one use in an entire town. You can prohibit it in
Gotcha.
specific use, which is what zoning is
Understood.
itself.
Yep.
Doing a flat ban from one side to another is not a zoning issue. It's a it's an outright ban.
There's still dry towns that don't allow the sale of alcohol.
That is
But
zoning
that's
law.
not, but that's not a zoning law.
No, I'm saying it's the same thing we're
That's
doing here.
under
It's-
138.
It's that.
Yeah, we do have it.
And that's like, yeah, that's like a
But does it have to tie to a zoning bylaw now? I thought right now we just have to put the language in exactly as on
What is
the
that?
ballot.
The
Yep.
zoning
So if they
bylaw.
vote again that they want to ban it, then we have
Thank
to
you.
make the language. So we don't need to get into all that.
Which
for
particular
this.
one
We
were you
just
looking
need
at?
to
It's a
literally
140-11.
take those three
Oh, the actual
questions that were on the
moratorium.
ballot and
No,
place
the
them on the
moratorium
warrant
falls under that section.
as articles.
And I
But
think
there's
that-
other things
that's
listed
right.
in that
I just
section
need to make
besides
sure that
marijuana.
we don't need to attach a,
You know,
code number to it.
Yeah, I don't think we do because I think it's just seeing if the town wants to ban that. Because once they say they want to ban it, then we need to make the code. There's no code to make yet. So
Well, I think if they ban it, that's it.
Right, but then we need to write the bylaw that says it's been banned in town. Or make the decree, I think.
I don't
You
know.
might not even have to do that.
Might not-
Let's-
So if they ban it, yeah, that's true.
You
If
ban
they-
it, you ban it. You've banned it under chapter 94G, section 3, paragraph.
So we might not need any of that stuff.
Yep.
And like I said, as far as this goes, if we just petition the town, asking the town if we should petition the legislature, this can be very free language. We petition them to say that if you, basically if you step down, you may not go for a concurrent election. You can step down and try to be elected, and if you make a concurrent election at the same time, then you're not eligible to go back, which, it makes no sense to have a concurrent election. I mean, how you be voted out and voted in at the same time, it's ludicrous, that the same person could run for it anyways, because if you want them in there, you're not gonna vote them out in the first place. And so
Can I
it's,
ask a question? So it doesn't sound like we're gonna wrap this up tonight. So I would just like to know, would you guys like to schedule another meeting with town council,
Tuesday.
and
Well, I would
Take
like to
care of
reach out to
everything
him
then.
and, so he can be prepared and have these rewritten.
this is what I'm saying, we're trying, I know Greg, we're trying to get this hammered out right now, but I think
right, but
you guys the consensus is we're not gonna get this done tonight, so.
what I'm looking for with this, I don't think we need to put anything about what Ellen wants in here yet. If we just say, if the town would like to see if we'll petition to rewrite the law for these amendments, it doesn't say when. Then when we do rewrite the things for Ellen, we'll include this in that. And if the town says no, when we rewrite the things for Ellen, it's just the things for Ellen. That rewriting is gonna come later and go to a different meeting. This isn't gonna result in us going right to the state with a petition. It tells us whether or not the town wants us to include that in that petition. That's what I'm after here. Do
Charlie,
they want this
what's your
included
thoughts
in
on
the
this
petition?
item? All or nothing or piecemeal?
Mine is all or nothing.
Right, that's what I'm not saying piecemeal. I'm saying, we have to ask the town if they want us to include this or not. When we petition the state, do they want us to include this in our petition or not? We're gonna petition for the concurrency.
But we gotta
That's-
ask the town that too.
No, we don't. We can petition the.
Why are we asking the town for this?
I don't think,
They're both modifications to the special act. So that's why we're saying all or
So, yeah.
nothing. Otherwise, you're wasting the legislators' time and they're
Well,
not gonna
maybe-
appreciate you
yeah,
coming
but-
back
but-
to them in 8 months.
what I'm trying to do is separate them here, so maybe here it should be two articles. It should be an article to see if we shall petition them to modify for these, and an article to see if we shall petition the state to modify for the concurrency. And we combine them in one request, and we do it to the, we only petition the state once.
But why do we separate the articles here?
Same reason we did the marijuana articles. Somebody might say, I want to be able to go smoke in a cafe, but I don't want to see sales in town. But if you bulk all three together, they have to say up or down on the whole thing. It just gives them,
Okay.
it just says,
I
hey,
follow you.
do you know what I mean? If they say they want to
Kathy?
both, we do them.
I just wanna say, Greg did what they asked him to do, but you had town clerk and town council come in and say that they think it should be done this way. I don't think there's any question of how it should be done. Town clerk, the town council said, come in, it took the time, well, Ellen did to come to the meeting.
They talked very generically, but they didn't really talk about the detailed steps it takes. Right now, we're talking about, is the first step, ask the town what you want us to do. The next step is develop the appropriate way to ask the state to do this, have the state act on it, then have it come back, and then have the town vote on the final product. What we're at right now, and don't get me wrong, I think we're guessing here, is do we even have to ask the town to ask the state to change the legislation? Because if they change it, it doesn't matter until we incorporate it via vote. So I'm not even sure we're required to ask the town, hey, do you want us to ask the legislature to change this because it's inaccurate and out of date? We may just be able to ask without any of this, but that never got brought up at the meeting on Wednesday. It just said it's gotta be done at the state first and then incorporated by the town. But why does the state know about it? Because the town asks. Somehow we ask.
And before we invest any time, we should find out.
So I'm
That's
just
why I
saying.
suggest have another meeting and have town council present so we can get that truly answered.
Well, we gotta figure that out before the next meeting. Because we need to have Article 42 rewritten to vote on, and Article 43, if he's saying it should be separated for the
Or
election
42A, yeah.
coordination.
We can do 42.
I'm just suggesting, or, as they've said, because we only have a week to do that, let's do it in the fall special town
Okay,
meeting,
Here's the thing.
rather than now, but make the commitment, and me as a member of the board would be committed to support you working with town council and requesting town council to work with you as well as the town clerk, so that this can be properly prepared for the fall town meeting.
So,
We would have completely supported it if we didn't realize we had to bring in the state legislature. But that kind of put a wrench in it, and that's why we're saying, let's not try to rush this for June,
so
because there's a lot to do in a week.
some timelines here.
I don't think any of them matter right now, because it just, we can't be done by then. I don't think we can do this.
Vote to strike
Correctly.
Article 42 from the warrant.
I definitely would support you doing it, though. I just think by June is,
You've already, when you win an argument, stop. Vote
Okay.
to strike Article 42 from the
all
warrant.
right. You got a second on that?
Yep.
All right. Vote,
Aye.
aye.
So we need to find out specifically what Ellen wants changed.
Right. And we gotta make that the point that we need something
And
ready
she'll
by
have to
beginning
point-
of September.
And she's gotta point out both differences in both sides.
Wait. You're familiar with state legislature processes. How early do you need to submit something to them so that they are,
It goes through.
you know,
this
because
is-
you talked about, I remember last year, you were talking about if you wanted to do something
And they
with
wanna
this.
get to it.
You get-
If it's
Right,
something
but when do you
spent
get it to them? Like, they won't even talk to you if you get it to them by December. It's
Well,
like
they're
you
in
get it to
session
them by
in the
September,
spring.
right?
Yeah, I think it would probably have a
Charlie, they're
shot.
in session in the spring, correct?
Yeah, but they'll be back in session with different bills and.
Yeah, they're
Start.
off for the whole summer.
Talking to.
I know, that's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
But
So,
they,
you know what? I don't need to know that tonight. That's just something we gotta
But their
factor in.
council-
That's just something we have to
You know,
factor
like the
in.
House Council and Senate Councils, they're there anyway.
Unfortunately, I can't
They
go
can
down.
answer those questions,
All right.
I would think, and somewhere the
I've
Attorney
met a
General
lot
is
of
probably gonna
legislatures
weigh
in
in
the
on
process
this.
current in
Yeah.
other towns.
Okay, I'd like to move on to the next two articles. Article 43, this was presented, I believe, by town council regarding the special town meeting, Article 14, to accept a parcel of land on Cole Road. It was brought up that apparently there's some concerns with the title search, and different individuals may still have existing potential to contest ownership. It sounds like from town council that the current owner requesting the town to accept it from him and is not willing to put more effort into resolving those issues for the town to take it. So town council says we should rescind the article and not take the land.
Okay, makes sense.
I'll make a motion, the article be placed on the warrant for rescind.
Second?
Call for vote?
Aye.
Aye. Article 44, Amend Article 15 of the November 14, 2017 special town meeting. This is to place a conservation restriction on the land off of Vernon Street that we acquired or attempted to acquire based on that special town meeting article. I don't know if we finished it, I just know that we're approved the acquisition of that property.
I'll make the
This
motion.
is the property around the well,
Yeah,
so we're just making it conservation land, is that the point?
Yes.
Okay, second.
just further discussion, my only concern here was, and this also comes from a little ignorance of understanding truly what it means to identify something as conservation land. I don't know what accessory uses fit under that, whether, so I did have concern that even if we made it conservation and all of that, but if we wanted to put in, somebody wanted to put like a bike shop or some similar recreational, does this now prevent it? And if it did, I didn't know if that's the best thing of a little pocket of conservation in the middle of your industrial zone,
When it's
along a bike track.
when it's bordering our well, yes. And
We can
that's
put
why-
conservation, recreation purposes when we read the article.
I think the deed specifically said conservation.
Oh, it
I
did?
think that is why Jim brought this back to us, is
Yeah.
because
They want the deed to say it,
Yeah.
is what I thought he
Conservation
said.
Commission can deem what it sees fit as a appropriate use.
See, that's what I didn't know, what determines appropriate use, is it now?
The Conservation Commission, pretty much.
Right.
They can
There's
sit
no
there and
other
go, yep, this
standard
seems to
or-
be a good idea.
Okay,
Yeah. I mean, it's basically, it's, for the record, it's deeded to them. They're the ones that see, that govern its future use. Rather than it being the Board of Selectmen that says, all right, we're just gonna sell it. It says the Conservation Commission goes, no, that's our property.
I got other thoughts on that.
Such as?
I gotta think about it before I just speak up.
Should we consider deeming it an open space?
See, I didn't think we needed to deem it at all, I thought, but according to Jim Baird, he's saying that the owner that wanted to give it to us won't do it unless it's,
Yeah, I wasn't aware that it was.
but I didn't realize it allowed the Conservation Commission to say, yes, this is what's right or wrong about it, and you can do it if we agree.
Can we add the caveat that it shall remain open space? Indeed, it'll go to Conservation Commission, but shall remain open space.
I would leave the door open for a number of things.
Open space?
Yeah,
Parks and things, but certainly no real construction that can.
right.
My concern is for the well. It doesn't prevent park benches or something like that, but it's gonna stop construction.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you could make a park out of it, which would be a great use. for
Yeah,
it.
my first thought was that, you know, we would have the industrially zoned land, and if some company came, we might be able to put together a package for them, but we can't do that.
You know, and I don't want to because of the proximity to the well. The whole
Yeah.
reason I liked getting this land was the buffer to the well.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you.
So can we possibly add the caveat that it'll be in control of the Conservation Committee, but shall be, you know, kept as open space?
Given the option, I'd like to say Conservation Committee, but their accepted use also needs a joint approval from us.
do we know the difference between
If they're willing to
conservation and
accept
open
that.
space, though?
Make it conservation, but they're not
I'm just
the only
asking.
people that can say what you can do with that land.
Open space refers to any open land.
And if it's a
and
state
how you- and how you
legislative
use it, but it's the
designation.
pe- not built upon.
Like a unilateral.
So, but that's why they make ball fields or
Over and
parks
above
or
the conservation.
walking paths and other things like that and keep this open space
Well, no,
to be
more, what I'm
used
saying
by
is they
the
would make
public
a
in some
decision,
way.
but then they would send it to us saying,
Conservation, I
do you
believe,
agree? And if
typically
we
is
don't,
just,
then nothing
is
happens
kept
until the
isolated,
next step.
typically.
I don't know
But I
if they're
don't know
willing to-
if conservation has restrictions on what they can let them use it for.
It was brought out that that land might be able to be used for the rail trail though.
Right.
Which would be compliant with open space.
No, that would be perfect. I mean, I don't wanna hold it up. If
I
you
don't
guys
think
think
it's-
it's good to do it, we'll
Well,
do it.
If council says we have to do it, to accept it.
Well, I think Jim Baird presented it in the way that he thinks these people are saying they're willing to donate it, here, this is how I'm willing to donate it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't open space, it wasn't restrictions, or, it was just placing it in conservation land
Yeah.
with no,
I know, some people that gave some land in Phillipston for conservation, and they have put in walking trails all through there, so they can,
No, I like the idea, and if we can do it, that'd be great. So,
Motion to put Article 44 on the warrant.
second. Call for vote?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Now,
The hardest part's done, we still got two more items. First one, I think we can do real quick if you don't mind. It's citizens' concern with Grogan Road condition. We did have some emails back and forth with the citizen from the original concern to the recent updates
I
they
think that's in
received.
your packet.
yeah,
My understanding is, after hearing about why DPW made the decisions they did about paving the hill but maintaining the rest is, graded dirt, gravel road.
at least twice annually.
The individual that brought this up is now understanding why they did the hill, because it's just washing out, why they paved that versus everything else. Apparently, this individual also spoke to their neighbor, who also prefers the dirt road once it gets graded.
Keeps the speed down a little bit.
And
too.
so, I don't believe this is an issue anymore, and I do believe that the answer from the DPW superintendent also helped. So I don't know if any further,
They seemed happy in their last letter. They're just concerned for the speed,
yeah.
which is, the speed by the police.
See,
So-
my road's turning into that same road, so it's okay. It's degrading back into history as a dirt
It's
road,
just washing away.
AKA Williamsville Road. Turning into a dirt road, right in front of my eyes.
Dissolving.
I wanna bring up a thing to the selectmen. This just made me think of it. The backside of Town Farm Road,
There's nothing to write home about.
somebody's gotta do something about that with
Yeah.
all those new houses in there with them paying taxes, and you can't drive down that road.
Oh,
And I
no.
think what's doing
No,
it
it's a
is
driveway.
trucks going to Preston. There's a lot of trucks going over there.
I don't know how that sits in Jason's paving list, but that's part of what we talked about the last commission meeting is, I was asking what kind of schedule he has for trying to pave the roads and how many years I think this is gonna take, and to stop taking dirt roads. We're trying to get them all paved eventually, and he tries to get, I forget the number he said per year, but he's looking at about probably 8 years to get them all done.
But they haven't even patched that.
I'm sure that's gonna be on a priority to get one, I would think, one of his paving roads, because the police have also asked about it being paved, because it's a shortcut the other way instead of going up and around town.
Yeah.
So it may make it to the chapter 90 list this year, I would think, I don't know. I don't know if it will, but I think it was on the police request. And
Take a look and see.
we'll have to certainly look at it and see.
What road was that, Greg?
Town farm, it's like
Okay.
driving down the side of a mountain when you go on the backside. It's crevasses and angles and slopes.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it.
It
No, it
is,
is not, does not look like a road.
if somebody's coming the other way, forget it.
What?
Next item is
Oh,
annual
it's
town,
bad.
annual town
At
report.
least we know they're not coming fast.
Yeah, I have one additional thing after that too, but, so the annual town report, we're doing something a little different this year. Monty Tech is putting it together for us as we speak. And Andrea has been working with the teacher down there, and they said they can get it done for us for town meeting. We do not have a dedication.
No, we do not.
So, at our finance committee meeting the other night, I brought this up to you guys and asked, if we can put some ideas out. We should get that really soon, so we can
Yes.
get this to Monty Tech so they can wrap up our project.
We had talked about doing something with John
Yeah,
DiPilato.
but John DiPilato, after his recent retirement from the sewer commission, might be, and DPW commissioner,
For a lot of years.
would be a good one. We did not receive any, and nobody else offered any other thoughts or nominations this year that I'm aware of, so.
I think that's a fitting dedication. as someone who came to town to work in the town as an engineer, loved the town, stayed here all these years, and gave a lot of his time to those committees for it. I think it's a very fitting dedication.
Hmm?
Family,
What?
that family, the ones that.
Yeah, I
passed.
don't know.
No, okay.
I don't
That's
know.
why I'm
I don't
asking,
know.
because you know more than I do, so if you don't know,
No,
then you
not
probably
really.
don't know. I mean, I guess that would be it, but we'd have to see if somebody might be able to help out with, I guess, somebody writes up a little dedication, right, for the inside flat.
Yes, one of our former town employees used to do it graciously for us.
Yeah.
I can reach out to that person, see if they would be willing to draft us up a dedication again, or if
If
you
he's
guys wanted to
interested.
draft something, it's whatever you think.
I have an idea. What if we did something with the town report and, we always get the donation from inside. We had a page in there, just,
I clip it on that,
yeah,
we could do that.
'cause they always come through and we usually do the routine here at the meetings, but,
How many years?
what?
How many years have they been there now?
Oh, God, a long time.
So,
And I know
Must
they've
be a
helped
long-term
out different
partnership.
things if, Jason had told me, if they need extra parts and,
Very different than some of the other establishments we deal with in town.
yes, considerably different. I don't know, it's just an idea.
Insight? Well, he's saying put a page in that, for their donation.
Acknowledge the donations.
Yeah.
It was very nice.
So they just send the checks, they don't even bring them in, we don't get to thank them, they just send it.
That's right, never neighbors.
What's your pleasure?
So, are you saying like one would be the front cover and one would be the inside cover type thing, just like?
Something
last
like
year?
that, yeah.
So like inside, John in the front.
Yeah,
Let's try that. Do you guys agree?
Yes.
John D. Pilato on the front cover, inside would be a good.
Recognition
Insight,
inside.
meditation
Inside.
center, recognition.
For the donations to the town and their generosity
Yes.
over the years.
Anybody that you can find that might help write to dedication. If you don't and you have a deadline to have one written or something, just reach out and we'll see if we can all find a way to help.
Okay.
But there are people that are better at writing than I am, so I do encourage someone to step up and help us out.
Do we want to place those 3 ballot questions verbatim on this warrant now? Just as straight as they were in the ballot, place them on the warrant, take the same language verbatim and place it on the warrant. And then if the town does affirm those again, then we can go ahead and we know it's banned and we don't have to worry about the bylaws. And any of the ones that they don't affirm, then we need to start with the moratorium votes and generating bylaws.
Do we have the ballot vote wording to
Yeah.
compare it? It may
Andrew had
already
looked-
be,
Andrew looked it up.
is it the same? That
It's
shall
a-
the town
Yeah,
part?
the quote is the exact part.
Okay,
The only question is, if it has to be part of the code, where does it really fit? Because I do not think it belongs in zoning.
okay.
Right, but I think for right now, it just has to be the same quotes to have the same vote. And if the town's voted twice to ban it, then it's up to us to write the bylaw and figure out where it goes.
See, I think
I
it
don't
does
think the
fall in
bylaw.
zoning.
I know, but we don't need to figure that out till after they affirm it or not.
All business activities are zoning. This isn't personal activity. This isn't walking down the street smoking, because we already got a law for that, and it's not zoning, you're right.
That's a very different, very different laws that
So,
govern
I would,
zoning actions, so.
Okay.
I would make a motion that we open the warrant to add Articles 13, 14, and 15, and they shall be the 3 ballot questions.
All right, hold the phone.
I'll confirm with the legal counsel this week.
We can modify it if we have to later, but I'd like to put them back in now as just those, and we can, if we have to change it, we can.
What's your pleasure on the actual voting to accept? Do you want to do that like next Tuesday, so that we can confirm that?
I can't do Tuesdays. Tuesday's out, but
So are
Do you
we
want-
putting these 13, 14, 15 back in?
Putting it back in.
We're putting them back in, we just gotta reword them.
that's what we're thinking
We
about.
gotta word it differently, that's why it got removed in the first place.
So why don't we rescind your vote to remove them,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Then they stay
think
as
we'd
they
have-
are. And if an amendment needs to be made, it can be made in the motion.
Well, the reason I removed them is I'm more comfortable just putting in the language exactly as it is on the ballot, not modifying and changing, just straightforward as it is. So we've complied with the rule that we've had the same exact thing voted on twice. And then if that's the town's wishes, each of those
So do
are
this.
now banned.
Here's my, we'll clean it right up,
So
because we don't have to go back and forth on this.
No.
I'm just
Read
asking
it.
what process you're trying to get to. Are you opening the warrant back up right
Article
now?
13, 14, and 15. We will rescind the vote to remove them from the warrant. But we will vote to modify them by only including the words that are in quotes.
Aren't those the words that were correct with the ballot?
Right.
Yes,
You
but
can-
there's other language in there not needed, like zoning bylaw.
Okay,
one-
so why don't we start with this?
How
Can we
much,
start
Yes, it
with
does.
a motion to rescind?
I'll make
Start with
that,
that?
I'll make that as a motion, to rescind them.
Articles 13, 14. The
Because there was
previous
the
votes on
question that was
articles
brought up,
13,
like,
14,
what
15.
happened?
Okay,
Because
hold
we were
on.
working with the
You
draft.
second
You
Yes.
moved what,
Sorry.
Charlie?
Second.
To rescind the previous votes to remove
Vote.
Articles 13, 14, and 15.
That's right. And I second it.
Call for a vote.
All right.
Okay. And
I move to amend Article 13.
Hold on.
removing the first
I
sentence.
don't think we have to amend that.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing the code.
That's what I just.
We have to amend the code of the town of Barre as well. Otherwise, it's gonna rewrite it. We're not amending the code, we're seeing if the town shall ban. Question the town, shall they ban to
Well, that would
prohibit the
still be a
establishment?
code, it's just not a
No.
zoning code.
We're not amending a code, there is none. There is no code.
We
There's-
can't prohibit something without some law in place.
We're asking.
Otherwise, it's a policy.
Right.
We're asking if the town wants us to prohibit it, and if they do, then we have to write.
It can
a
still have, it can
code.
still have that same title. It can still have the same title.
That's all I
amending the
thought,
code.
yeah.
Right, and that's what we were saying, is that it still is an amendment to the code, it's just, no.
Yeah,
So the
so we're
title
just
doesn't-
removing the first
title doesn't-
sentence.
The title doesn't hurt
The
us.
title does not hurt us.
Right,
No.
because it's generic enough.
Right.
It's not referencing any particular part of
And
the
it says right
code.
under the chapter that it's
Okay.
amending the code, it's just not.
So
the
then we
zoning
just,
code.
so Article 13 shall read, amend the code of town of Barre. Quote, shall the town prohibit
Hold
the
on.
establishments?
Shall the,
Town prohibit the establishments of marijuana retailer, comma, storefront within the town of Barre as described in the state of Massachusetts draft regulations 935 CMR 500.000 adult use of marijuana, end quote. Now, if you read it back, we'll see if we got it.
so. Shall the town prohibit the establishments of marijuana retailer storefront within the town of Barre as described in the state of Massachusetts draft regulations 935 CMR 500.000 adult use of marijuana?
Correct. I vote that we make that modification to Article 13 and place it on the warrant. I move.
I'll second.
Make that.
Any discussion? Call for vote?
Aye.
Aye.
So when you're ready to rewrite Article 14?
I'm not ready.
Just
You-
take
you-
the original one and delete the first
Yeah,
sentence
just-
all the way up to the
that's what I'm
quote,
saying.
and
Just-
then it's
yeah.
verbatim.
Be a lot easier. And you leave the or take any action relative there too.
So what are we on, 14 then?
Yeah, just the first sentence basically you wipe out, right up to the quotes, all the way up to the colon. So we'll wind up with just shall the town, start with shall the town.
What regulation are we talking about that doesn't have, proper vote for the prohibition?
MGL Chapter 94G, Section 3. And that's gonna be, I believe, let's see.
94-3?
94G, section 3.
94G.
All right, and then 15's the same way.
Yeah, same thing.
Paragraph E.
Let's go down to the
Well,
quotes.
section what?
Section
G, section 3.
3, paragraph A.
Thank you.
Okay, local control.
Okay,
Am I all ready?
I'm sorry.
The other two ready?
Mhm.
Make a motion to amend Article 14, as we discussed, and place it on the warrant.
I'll second.
Call for a vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to amend Article 15, as we discussed, and place it on the warrant.
Second.
Call for a vote?
Aye.
Aye.
We're getting so close. Actually, shorter than I thought it would be.
With all my-
One more thing, regular business, was that
Yours or
farmers.
mine?
That's yours, I think.
I just need you guys
Are
to
they
sign
both-
this.
They both have to pass?
Oh,
Mine
Those
are-
look like your check marks.
No.
Wine?
Yeah, you don't need to take any action, you already did it, just sign it.
Oh, okay.
I just have this. Summary sheet. Yeah, that's my stuff.
We need, this is on the license.
Where'd mine just go? You got mine somewhere there?
That's weird, huh?
Your what?
Oh. I forgot I gave it to you.
That's right,
See
you
if
didn't
it
have
would
to
help.
fade it. Wow.
So I had something, it's gone. All right. Do we have any selectmen's reports?
Not me.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn. Are you all set?
Yeah.
Got a second?
Second?
Call for vote.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Aye. Have a great night. Thanks for
Okay.
staying, Claire. Thanks for staying, Brad.
It's really not as bad as I thought this would be.